Appropriate. All right. We'll call to order today's meeting. This is the budget workshop for Helotes City Council. The date is July 15th, 2026. Time is 1 p.m. So as our workshop starts, we're going to start off with item number 2, which will be a presentation and discussion by city members on economic forecast for the economy. So the general idea behind this item is it's very difficult to make financial decisions for a municipality if we don't have a good idea where the economy is or is headed. And so we'll just kind of get a, do we have Greg Michelle today or no?
He is on.
Okay,
Just
okay,
got on.
perfect. And so we'll just get everybody's intake of where and what basis they have for assessing where the economy is and where we're headed for a backdrop for making our financial decisions. I guess we'll start at this end with Member Pro Tem Buck. What are your thoughts on the economy and where we're at?
It's a moving target every day. What's going on in the world? One day we're looking a little better, next day it's gone totally upside down. It is hard to tell. It is hard to tell. Locally, unfortunately, in Helotes, a few businesses have left us, moved to neighboring communities. That's a little concerning. The delay in 7 Brew getting on board with the pause in the sales tax on that. Eventually that will come back, but that probably now won't be definitely till first quarter next year. And with the weather, it is nice to see the growth around 1560 Shanefield. New homes coming on board. Hopefully they will break ground in the next few months with the new apartments. But just seeing those few businesses leave is a little concerning, and the loss of revenue on that, and just in general losing them, and mostly the smaller businesses and not the corporate businesses. It's a little upsetting that, but we'll work through it.
Okay. Sabrina?
As far as the economy, it's good timing. We have an Economic Development Corporation board meeting tonight where we'll be talking about the sales tax. I know there is a little bit of a lag compared to this time last year, but we're also looking forward to seeing some of those increases occurring now that Sherwin-Williams is open, the McDonald's, and then the other businesses that have moved into Helotes in the last few months.
Okay. There?
My biggest concern is our heavy reliance on one business for a majority of a good bit of our revenue. And if something were to happen to them, I think we would be in a world of hurt and be looking at, trying to increase property taxes and whatnot. I'm very reluctant to reduce any of our current income based on that.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have a lot to add to that, except that I do look forward to us getting some more, sales tax receipts coming in with the new businesses. I know it looks like we've gone down a little bit for this year. I am a little concerned because the ad valorem taxes, as far as our property values, are starting to balance out. During COVID, they were so high, so everybody was taxed high. Now they're starting to kind of even out, and we're going to lose some of that. Also, effective in January of this year was the increased exemption for business property tax. And I think we're not remembering that, but I don't know how much it is, or if anybody could tell me, but it used to be that if you have a business, you have personal property with your business, and if you had more than $2,500, that was taxed, as well as your land, your real property. So this year, though, which I was of course thrilled about, but most businesses are, that they increased the exemption to $125,000. So now you don't have to pay taxes on your personal property for business unless it exceeds $125,000, which before it was only $2,500. So that's a huge difference. I mean, I don't know how much Helotes was actually getting from that, but we won't be getting that anymore. So I do think we have to look at that in regards to our revenue, because as we know, prices are always going up, things are costing more, we have more expenses, we have to make sure that we have the revenue coming in.
Okay, we get 0 from that. That's non-effective for
So
local.
no business, personal property?
No, that's
Okay, I
that's
saw
state
that.
inventory.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, well, never mind then.
Greg?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. You all hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I came on right as you were starting, so I think you're asking about the general economic situation. And I think on the macro level, kind of as Buck said, it's a very unpredictable time, given everything that's going on both statewide and beyond. One of the things I think about in relation to Helotes is that we remain to be a really a growing city. We've experienced a lot of growth over the last several years, and our needs as a city have increased. I think we run a pretty lean and efficient operation, but the demands on the city, I think, are only going to increase. So I think we all have to be, aware of that and planning for that. And I do agree that with the new businesses coming in and with the I'll call it the revitalization of the EDC. I think there's good opportunity for the city to continue to find pathways towards growth as we move forward. So there's a couple things I think about regarding the bigger economic picture in which we all exist.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's input. I'll give my outlook, base my outlook a little bit more than just what's happening today. As a former CFO of a company and advisor for investments for the last 25 years, we take a look at trends and develop what's happening overall nationally through the state and of course local economies. I'm taking a look at CPI and PPI as general drivers for inflationary costs for businesses, and what we are seeing is, yes, they did increase, particularly during war effort, if you will, and throughout the last year, but they have leveled out, and all indicators, including what was released this morning, actually a larger than expected decrease of 0.03, a drop in PPI down to 2.6% inflation on an annualized basis. What we're seeing is, for the past number of months, is a leveling off and preparing for a decrease more than a further increase. Take a look at the comments from the Fed, and we're looking at certainly not 100% elimination, but the vast elimination of fears of further rate hikes, which would mean decrease in cuts more likely, and certainly going forward over the next several years. This leads to not a deflationary, but a significant leveling off of inflation. So this is good for purchasing habits, the personal finances of individuals. We take a look at what's going on. That's on the federal level, of course, as a backdrop. When we're looking at our local level, yes, we do have a couple of businesses like 6 Clicks, for example, if that's the one you're referring to primarily. And of course, that company does have a history of establishing business, staying in operation for a couple of years, and then leaving. This is just a little bit what they do. I know them personally. Both my kids work there and talk with them on that, and they want to be in Bend there, and off they go. Landlord issues, whatever their personal issues may be. But if you take a look at the history of Helotes on any given year, we'll have 15 businesses leave and 15 to 18 businesses that move in on the small business side, if you will. When we take a look at our large businesses for the concerns about that, last year we were sitting in a position of significant concern. That was the direction I was coming from when I was cautious about spending money, because they didn't have a signed contract. We were not sure exactly what was going on. There was upheaval, and we were entering a period, of course, after substantial inflation through a number of years under the previous federal U.S. president, and you saw that in their stock prices. It plummeted from 200 to the 70s. We saw a recent balancing out and see a leveling off of interest rates, And this past December, they did sign a 10-year lease with their landlord. So I think it's safe to say on the local level for our major provider that with that 10-year lease, that eliminates concerns about that. The point of it being top heavy in our sales tax is why we have efforts moving forward for expansion. We do have a McDonald's, obviously, that's now on board. We have Sherwin-Williams, we have the Take 5 that's coming on. We have the development of Bandera Ranch. We have the addition on, over the next 3 years of 170 plus or minus homes in the Brycewood. That is an ongoing and continuing operation. So you don't count it till it happens, but that's a high degree of probability and certainty versus perhaps Bandera Ranch, which is, yes, they've signed and they want, but they haven't shoveled dirt, but that is certainly a positive outlook as far as major increases in revenues. So I also take a look at our needs of the city. One of the things when I was elected in 21, we had our efficiency in amount of work per what everybody was doing, and we had an extra office staff, but we had a significant amount of downtime. Shifted, realigned in our office, became a little bit more efficient. We ran lean because we had excess capacity, if you will. We could handle more work, but we couldn't really do the work we had with less people, if that makes sense. So we had the ability to have excess capacity. It's one of the issues we have with our dispatch, for example. We could handle many more calls, but we can't even do our calls with less people because you have to have minimal staffing. So that was one of the old draws. How do we make that a more balanced division where we can, and it's always been a year's effort to try to get additional cities to do their dispatch for those cities, and but we have significant excess capacity there to handle additional populations. Our police department is one area where we have a tremendous amount of calls, and of course we added the police officers through the Proposition A, so we are well positioned to be able to handle any incremental growth that we may have. Thinking about growth, we are at roughly about 13,000. Census says about 10,000 and change, but that did not include our people of Brycewood when that was annexed in and they started building those houses. So when we really take a look at it, the maximum that we could possibly get to over the next 5 years might be an additional 5 to 6%. And we certainly have staffing on board already to be able to handle those needs. I look back to where we were in 21, 22, 23, 24. We had significantly less money. We had 2.3 months worth of reserves. We now have 15 months of reserves. And for 4 years straight, we cut properties taxes even though we did not have the savings that we had now. And yet we were able to continue to make more and more money. We now have more employees and again, have enjoyed giving the highest raises in the history of Helotes. We're now to a point where after last year's raises, where we had a good marker of where we're doing in the market for personnel, as I look at an economy, is how many people are applying for jobs. We used to have very few applications because it was perceived we were behind average as well. Now, I know Fire had a position available and they had 21 applicants for that position. I think Jamie was saying the other day you had a spot and you had 39 applications for that spot, but PD had a spot and they had 3 applications, right?
3 or 4.
So that still speaks to where our focus is, that if we're behind the curve and the proof is in the pudding as far as who's seeking and the amount of seeking, that does seem to be the area where we're falling a little bit short. But what we've proven as a city economically, and we take a look at where we've been and what we did, we had very little money, but still were able to cut property taxes and give raises and end up with even more money each and every year. That's a great strategy, a great pattern. Now we're at a point where, again, we have so much money that people are criticizing the amount of successes. Sometimes that we shouldn't have this much money. I don't disagree with them. Last year we had significant external threat. This year we don't have that external threat. We got signed 10-year contract, we got more businesses, we got major businesses coming in, and we have a significant amount of money. So this provides a great environment where now that we've gotten rid of survived the external threats, if you will, we didn't have anything to do with that. That was their business cycle, if you will. Given the federal background, the state background, reduced inflation, increased earnings. I don't know if anybody have been tracking employment and earnings and hourly earnings and clocks, but that is all improving as well too, not only just federal, but state and also countywide. So this puts us in a great background as far as taking a look at what's going to happen for the next 3 to 5 years. I say, in my opinion, based on that information, we have a nice future headed for us to be able to make some decisions that if you all decide we want to spend some money, let's spend some money, but we're also are well poised to be able to do property tax decreases because we're clearly taking in and accumulating more money than we ultimately need to be doing with the lack of external threats. But that is the background from where I see it. Again, certainly don't mind if we don't spend and end up with 20 months worth of reserves. That's I'm good either direction. So. So with that, as a discussion on economic background and landscape, let's go to item number 3, which we will again tie Henry, as I believe is customary for how you've set up the presentation, item number 3, 4, and 5 simultaneously because of their interconnectedness.
Yes, sir, that would be my request.
Okay. If there's no opposition to that, we'll go ahead and start discussion, and I will turn it over to you, Henry, for comment and direction.
Excellent. So thank you, Mayor and Council, and all those that are present and or watching. I will say that I'm going to brief through the slides by exception, meaning that I'm going to touch the updated and or new slides unless there's questions, comments, concerns. I think it's really important for us to get through the meat of the matter so that we can hear the discussion, debate, and even receive some measure of direction collectively so that we'll be able to put together more focused and succinct activity when we're not in your presence. So that is a true goal in the discussion as far as from the professional staff. We've gone back to talk about the overall approaches and options based on what we've heard. And so I'll say it once again, even though it's simply repetitive, we're looking to make sure that we give space for discussion. By way of note, our goal, because we do have a 7 o'clock meeting in this same room tonight, we would hope that we could close out no later than 4:30 so that the room could be reset, or the space can be reset for use in the evening. So speeding on, and again, if you got questions, comments, concerns, you're gonna have to flag me down. So the very first slide, and the first few slides actually, maybe up to about maybe slide 10 or 12 or so, really is just information that I wanted to set before you as you did your preparation, not only now, but also going into the rest of the budget season. Our goal would be that when we hit August meetings, that first meeting, that we're really, in my opinion, I think we could be close to being on cruise control. We'll have the real data from the property tax, but the rate won't be set at that point. So nonetheless, I ask that you consider what policies and philosophies that you all will have going forward, looking at norms and stuff.
Anomalies.
That word, thank you. I said I wasn't gonna say the word. I still didn't. I failed. I got like 3 words that are really tough for me, and I choose to put one of them on a slide, right? But nonetheless, the strange stuff and the norms, right? So
And then if you go back just one thing that I want you to consider, what are the community priorities that are going forward? I've been, on the professional side, we've been having some very, very small conversations about, hey, we're about to reach our 50th year. I don't know what we want to do, but I know it won't be cost neutral. So things for us to consider, yes. All right, so operational capacity, what do we perceive as our capacity needed for the future, not only just now? That includes delivery of service, wages, and things of that sort. That we know that since I've been here, we've done some technology improvements, and we're very grateful for those. But we know that if we have a lot of deferred actions and/or maintenance, that's going to be something that we have to consider. And also, if there's any deferred maintenance that causes us to have to take a very specific look at anything. Institutional maturity, when do we think that we're going to level? I don't know that answer right now, and I don't think any of us have that real answer at this moment. But based on the properties and spaces that are available, the business types that could come in, all that is opportunity. But I don't have that answer for you. I wish that I did, because I'd be able to show you exactly where we would be, but I can't. All forecasts are educated in anticipations, right? Educated anticipations. So, and then if we find ourselves in a tight spot, what do we consider as trade-offs? Okay. I put a couple of definitions on here, short version and long version: budget deficit versus structural deficit. And I'm hoping that you all read through those. I don't want to spend too much time on the details of the words, but this slide here that you're looking at is just really the overview of both the next two slides that are coming up. So budget deficit is something like, in simplest forms, we overspent. And there are some times where you plan to do some measures of overspending, but you should be thinking about what's the downline effect of that. But oftentimes I would look at a budget deficit as I overspent. And then structural deficit is when I think last year I gave the example of, you get a $1,200 raise and you go buy, this year I'm going to use the word Maserati, straight off the lot, right? And so that's probably not the best plan, that just because you got a small bonus, you go and make a long-term commitment financially that is not supported by the foundation of what you received. So that's just one of the examples that I like to use. And then we have, continuing on, just basically put a couple of questions on the slide for your consideration and thoughtfulness as we go through the process of budgeting. What truly is our long-term financial strategy? How do we project that? How do we perceive it? Do we prioritize from a capital standpoint ownership versus leasing? I'll tell you that I've taken a couple of meetings regarding equipment and/or vehicles, and every single time I like to choose to have assets that we own versus lease. That doesn't mean that everybody has that same philosophy, but I'm curious what you all think. So there's some more questions on this slide, and then we'll go to the next slide that's actually showing right now regarding sales tax receipts. They can be and are stable and volatile. It just depends on the season. We're experiencing some lags currently, and that's something that we've known for the majority of 2026. The interest income, we look at that as far as Daniel and I, when we're going through things, we typically on the property tax, we take up 99% essentially of our property tax by August. We do use a firm to assist us with that along the way. We have used them a lot more than we have in the past, and that's why I think I may have explained that one line regarding court was higher because of our utilization, but that also gets us more of those pennies that come back in for the sake of revenues. And so we look at actuals versus risk along the way. Next is the proposal that we've received that's related to going to 28 cents. And I just wanted to, I just simply put that there so that we have that. And the next one talks about eventually our obligations regarding debt will reduce as we go through. So our 2007s will retire here pretty soon. When I say pretty soon, about this time next year, we won't have our 2027 debt, but 2007 debt, but we will have a sustained payment that is, we consider it a balloon payment that will actually keep our debt obligation close to what it is for 1 or 2 cycles, and then it'll drop on the INS or the debt side of how we do our taxes. And so, yeah, we'll go to the next one. So on this slide, this is our actual tax rate regarding the 2025, what we landed on. Just as we get closer to setting the tax rate, you'll see a no new revenue rate. You'll also see a voter approval rate. And then you'll see broken down inside that is the maintenance and operational tax rate. And that is the actual number that you most influence, because the other number, the INS, is the tax rate for bonds or our debt. And that number in red is given to us. What we got to think about is there's a no new revenue rate both for overall tax rate and the maintenance and operational tax rate. So eventually I have the red arrow that ultimately that over time goes down unless you take more debt. The M&O rate is, I write it as a squiggly because that's dependent on decision. So, all right. And the capital improvement. So big picture, we've kind of talked about capital improvement in the past of how those funds don't come off of the operational side. It comes from the from a specific fund for capital and or any other funds in reserves that we have. One of the things that we have done over these last 2 years is we've established a capital improvement program that shows the out years of what could be supportable and the requests as we know them. Okay. We know that the street side gets a 1/4 cent for roads and street projects and the like. We know that we have a huge program that's going to come up for Leslie Road and in and around 2031. But those funds on the street side come in specifically as a designated tax. Then for discussion points. Again, we're looking for the remainder of the budget season to have your discussion, feedback, debate, so that we can get your feedback and we can make the adjustments regarding how we approach and build the remainder of the budget. There's a lot of talking points that remain. There's a lot of questions that remain, but really the driver really starts with you all from today forward. We'll go to the next slide that says updated should be 2 forward. So one change on this particular slide is the healthcare numbers. We still have not received our healthcare number, but in discussion, I previously was showing 15%, but now I'm showing 20% as a result of an anticipation or question that the health broker has brought to us. Next slide shows us, we've had a question of what our account types are. And so I wanted to make sure that we have a listing of those in one place for you. So it's very easy for you to have that for your record or files for the future conversations. We know that ARPA will fade off. So anything that was paid by ARPA, we are paying for those now, just so that you have a clear understanding of that. And then debt service again will reduce or fade. And then so we can go fast through these.
Henry, may I interject for a moment with a question? Going back on the healthcare one, I don't know if I heard you say this, the timing for when we would expect to know what that anticipated number would be.
Yes, sir. We expect to have that number more firm before the next council meeting.
Meaning next week?
The 23rd? Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Excuse,
Yes.
can you say what the question was that the brokers brought? You mentioned that the assumption you put in there is now 20%.
Correct. Yes, so it's based on utilization, whether there's high users or high cost users of the system. So our the way that they, I guess,
Explained it.
yes, but they'll go back out and bid out us as a product, I guess. And so those providers will look and say, well, okay, what kind of usage do you have? What kind of, medications are being used? What kind of services are being provided? How many surgeries? How many types of illnesses? Those type of things. Yes, sir.
Just provide a little specific number, background. When I first got here in 21, we had whatever policy we had, and what insurance companies are, regardless of the policy, no matter what policy you have, no matter what you're paying, they want the claims to be less than 80% of what they're charging you. That gives them 20% for profit and overhead. We ended up post-COVID with employee population of 83 people that over the course of 30 years, you might expect 3 cases of cancer over 30 years. We had 5 cases of cancer in 1 year. And so we had payouts of 140%, 150%, year after year after year, which is what led us to, right off the bat, we ended up taking a more catastrophic or lesser quality front-end health insurance policy, but we matched it with a concierge service, which ended up being with Prestige ER and their associated Alamo Care, so that we could go there for significantly less copay and have everything on one flat fee, and none of those would go to our claims. So therefore, that reduced our claims, and eventually 2 years ago, instead of having 0 additional companies to bid, we ended up with several. 2 years ago, we had 8 last year, and we ended up getting 2 years ago, a slightly better policy for about the same price, and this last year we went significantly better policy. And
Can I ask you about
Sure.
that? Have we done any feedback from employees about how they like the health insurance policy, the company? Because I know that health insurance is a huge part of your compensation as an employee. But if it doesn't work very well, or you can't go to a lot of different doctors, or they don't accept it, oh, that's like, so do we have any like feedback from the employees about it? They like the insurance, it's easy to use, I went in the emergency room, I didn't have a problem, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so if I may.
We do, let me finish up with this, and I'll turn it and yield to you. We do, and there's always cases of, it worked out for everybody, but except for this person in this situation, or that person in this situation, and there's never 100% happiness with whatever product across the board. But when your choices are, hey, you can get this policy, we pay this policy for you, and because you have your family, it's gonna be a couple $100. This would be a better policy, but you gotta pay $3,000 a month out of pocket. When your choices are that horrible, you end up taking a look as what is most affordable for the most people, what provides the best coverage for the most people. And with the individuals that may have a special situation, we get to work and see how we can manage or mitigate. With that, I'll yield.
Right. Yes, and that's a good question. We haven't formally done a survey of the team. However, like the mayor said, we're going to get the good and the bad, and for a short season, we even got the ugly, right? And part of the thing with that is when we switch, and we are at risk every year, unfortunately, of having to switch our providers.
That's
right. So the continuity of care, all of that is just a simple headache to deal with every single year as an opportunity. The state of Texas does not give us the opportunity to have a 3-year contract regarding healthcare. And so as a result of that, we end up landing where we land. We had a significant change in our approach of going with a different broker and all of those things, different network, but we did a lion's share of work to include the broker, especially the broker, to get a certain medical system inside our umbrella, and it worked. And so that eased a lot of tension from that point going forward. There's no perfect situation, though.
No, yeah.
I hope that helps, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay, all right. All right, so going back, one thing that you all didn't see on the admin side was the open records request for the software. I did not walk through what that actually brings to us. So what it does, what ultimately we have the numbers that are represented for 2025 and so far for 2026, current as of late June. And to be able to process those inside of a system of record and not have to do as much of the emailing back and forth that we do. And it's kind of like the permitting type approach that we're doing, putting it into an application as opposed to going with emails, and we find more efficiency with that. So that just brings a little bit of character or color to that request.
So our request actually almost cut in half this year.
We're at, that's as of June.
Oh, okay, that's the whole total.
So
This is just-
2025 is all the year,
Gotcha.
and 2026 is to late June.
So we're on.
So we're on track.
Yeah.
All right? Okay. And then we'll speed through a lot of slides. We'll go to, one thing as an update, we're gonna drop the bridge drainage repairs from one of the set of slides that actually accidentally got duplicated inside of a department as well as on the Capitol. So, we can just speed through, actually. Oh, okay, here on Public Works one, you see this number here that has yellow, the 135, depending on total available funds is at risk of changing. All right, I'll watch your screen instead of
Okay.
mine. And then we actually had another item on this, which was the tractor shredder, which is going away as a request for this current one. Okay, you can go until we keep going.
And on that last slide, do we currently have a backhoe, or there's no details in the document about the backhoe? Is it new? Is it a repair?
We do not currently have one.
Okay,
We rent as needed,
Yes,
okay.
okay.
which was the reason, just to put a little color on it. We didn't have a lift bucket either, and we had to rent that for a number of things for, changing out light bulbs so that we owned and not TxDOT. So we'd have to rent one of those apparatus each time. So we spent an amount, and you've seen our bucket truck, I'm sure tooling around here. One of the reasons why we needed to build the building for places to put things. But we've probably made the entire cost of that just in saved rentals thus far. So
And even to, same subject, just slightly variance, we recently had you might have noticed there was a small season when we had a lot of grass out here. A lot of grass. Like you walk up and you're like, how come we didn't cut the grass? It's not that we didn't want to. Our machines were down, right? We could have rented a piece of equipment, and the number of days that we would have needed, we could have bought one. So we did. So, and it's just, we're still gonna repair the ones that's down, but nonetheless, it gives us another piece of equipment as a backup, so.
Well, also owning it, we know the maintenance, and we're not putting people on something that was not maintained and then get hurt also, so.
All right, and then, so the fire doors, we had previously the police doors was $25,000. It was it probably was highlighted. That number is more firm. Okay. And then for the driveway, that number is updated. I think we had a placeholder there of $25,000. And then we're gonna drop for now, the sidewalk project, so that goes off of the forecast. Okay. Oh, sorry, go back one. I failed to mark one as new, and it is the one at, the next,
Up or down?
that one. No.
The old
One
town,
the other way.
87?
One more?
Slide
Right
8,
there.
7.
Okay,
That one.
so, sorry, I apologize. I won't tell you what time it was when I had this slide. But it was, let's just say it was so late that I forgot to tell Public Works about it. But in the Old Town Plan in 2007, there was a plan about a linear park trail, walking trail. And so we dug that back up. I will tell you that the anticipated number is wrong. It is probably based on a 2014 document that I was able to find. Public Works and I were looking, and they actually brought it to me. Thanks, Justin. But he found some information that we were leaning towards what are the costs in construction. So that number in 2014 was $1.6 million. And so it did include some walkways and things like that that would go across Bandera. Now, I don't know if Justin thought I was joking, but I was like, wouldn't it be safer to have a sky bridge than to put pedestrians going across the street and then go to the island and then go back across a highway, not just street? But nonetheless, the $1 million listed there is really probably 1/6 or so at the 2014 estimation. So, and again, I apologize for not marking that as new. Okay. All right. All right. So from an emergency communications standpoint, this slide is, so this is a result of the up and down going to IT. So you'll have some things that ended up moving over to IT. The items that moved over into the IT budget truly have been reduced out of the previous slides the previous numbers that you've seen. So it ends up balancing and being a wash. And then we have the telecommunicator position 1, that number plus the 3. Don't know if I explained this one before, but I'll explain it because it has the update on there. The update really is we don't currently have a telecommunicator 3 position, and that would end up being a number 2 for that division. True number 2 by classification as well as by qualifications. And then there is a request, I believe that was talked about being adding an additional position, but I think that one was talked about. So we have the numbers, total system. For the IT, that number has grown, but again, those numbers were moving items from departments and divisions into IT as an overall budget number. And similar, same thing here. Okay. All right, and then the contracted services, I highlighted the 4,700. That's as a result of reductions going to IT. And so this slide previously had something else that was moved over into the IT. I think we're getting close to EDC. And at this point, I'll yield to, unless there are some more slides after EDC that I have for us, but I'll yield to the wonderful Kate Silvis to do her portion of the talk. And if you don't mind, I'll step away from this.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming out on such a wet and exciting day in the city of Helotes. My goodness, the water is rising, so I respect your time and thank you so much for all you do. Myra has been kind enough to distribute to you copies of the slides for today. You have seen these slides before. There are a couple of modifications that we've made since the last time we spoke, so I want to highlight those for you right now. So if you could go through these, the 3-year picture, let's see here. We went past the outline, the core focus. Let's go to the three-year picture. The future date for our three-year horizon would be 2029. Our revenue would be at or hopefully above 3 million, with a fund balance at or above 4.5 million, with the measurables that we discussed last time. What does success look like? A business, a new and expanded local retail sales options, entrepreneurship center, business retention expansion program to be established in future years, thriving old town, hotel motel development with conference center, and creation of convention visitors bureau are some of the aspirational goals we can look for. In our one-year strategic plan, the board has outlined for us we have outlined a one-year strategic work plan that includes looking ahead to 2027, revenue of at or above $2 million, measurables of sales tax receipts and performance agreements with targeted businesses. Our goals for the year include quality of life improvements at the city hall, at the city park and master plan, development of an incentives program, attendance at City of Helotes leadership meetings, 3 weekly outreach touches to prospect CRE and retail, occupancy at the business center at or above 75%, and 3 to 4 business retention visits per month. That is within existing resources. Our rocks for the year, those things that are the most important to us, of course, are number 1, strategic alignment with the City of Helotes. Very important for us to be on the same page and focusing on the same goals and the same objectives. Our CRE deal share this past April was very successful. We've been successful with retail recruitment. I'll be keeping you apprised of that through the city administrator. And the incentives program will be developing in this coming quarter, as well as our budget preparation in the first quarter of 2027. My objective will be to publish a hotel feasibility study, a target industry study RFP in the second quarter of 2027, and then also look at branding and refresh also with regard to our video and our website. On the next several pages, you'll see that we have a current fiscal year 2026 budget. On page 8, you'll see outlined there the challenges that we currently have with administration of our existing budget in terms of transparency, clarity, and administration. The board often asks me, where is this or where is that? You'll see here examples. Our visitor center has money set aside for, but is not clear. Our operational expenses are at $18,500. It's kind of a catch-all, and so I'm proposing, as I mentioned last time, to create a cost center approach to our budget so that we can capture the costs associated with the business center. Questions?
Just clarifying origination destination taxes, and obviously it's in its 6th round with the comptroller's office and that law that they keep trying to change, and that was a fear of potential external threat. We're just commenting on that.
Understood. So I think I understand you're asking about sales tax projections.
Not so much projections, just
changes as to where they would be allocated based upon the origination, which would be up the street, or the destination, maybe across the road.
Sure. Point of sale type questions
Correct,
associated with legislation.
Which could drastically impact us.
Yes, sir. That is correct. That is why economic development is so vital, as you know, to the community, to be able to diversify your sales tax base and to focus more on retail sales operations that will help increase both sales tax, looking at hotels that will help increase heads and beds and additional sales tax over weekends and holidays. So I completely agree with you, 100%.
So any idea for how long it takes for us to get in a decent or major source of income into Helotes? I mean, it's years, isn't it?
Yes, no, a development from the ground up takes time, both before the development as well as moving forward. My expectation is you'll see a change in sales tax. For example, with Bandera Heights, a year into the development, you'll see some ground up, and then a year past that point. So it could be from 1 to 2 years, depending on the aggressive schedule for that particular development, for example.
Bandera Heights or Bandera Ranch?
Bandera Ranch,
Okay,
sir.
okay, just make sure it was a.
Bandera
Yeah,
Ranch,
so
sorry.
to your point, we're at 3 years into this project already.
Yes, sir.
So it does take time if I understand your question, not so much that, yes, once they turn dirt, we're gonna start getting appreciation and value of the property, and then as it comes on, we'll have sales tax and whatnot. But you're talking about, for example, on 1560, what's it gonna take to generate income from the 30 acres sitting there?
Totally.
And that's years of, or hopefully not years of marketing, but then once you have somebody landed, then you've got, well, it took us 3 years to get where we're at right now, Bandera Ranch, if that
Sure.
puts that in
That's
perspective.
the reason why a targeted industry study is so vital, as well as a hotel feasibility study is so vital. These studies provide the data necessary to sell the concept to particular industries, and we'll be working diligently on those projects after the first year. But sales tax is critical for the community, as I know, and as well as development of additional commercial real estate, as we've discussed before. With new commercial real estate coming online, the property values of those assets increase the property taxable value to the city of Helotes, such that that increases the valuation and helps stabilize the property taxes that are charged to the residents on their homes. So the objective is diversification as much as possible, both sales and property tax values. So yes, sir. So moving through these next few slides, this just shows you our existing budget for fiscal year 2025, 2026. If you'll just move through these few slides with me, unless there's any questions, these are identical to the slides that you've seen with me the prior workshop. In 2027, we've made some modifications. On your spreadsheet in front of you, on page 14, there are 2 numerical changes that I made, and I apologize for this last minute change, and I apologize for this. Councilman Michelle, you don't see this on your screen, but I'm proposing an increase in the use of fund balance, and you'll see that number was $1 million. I'm proposing to use a fund balance of $1,374,409 for a total revenue outcome of $4,072,408. And I apologize for this oversight on my part. When I was in the process of going back through my slides, I recognized that the number on page 14 did not balance appropriately with the expenditures that I had proposed for the budget. The next several slides do not have any changes on them. I will refer you to, just momentarily, I will refer you to a couple of increases that we made. We're proposing a $75,000 new signage reimbursement grant program. It's come to my attention that several businesses are really challenged in trying to increase visibility and increase sales. New signage reimbursement grant program is proposed to be able to increase sales tax for existing businesses, to improve the visibility from the road, such that we will be able to increase sales and increase revenues to those businesses.
Quick question on that.
Yes, sir.
So the vast majority of complaints for increased visibility didn't have to do with them being able to afford it. It was according to how big of a sign was allowed by city ordinance.
Correct.
So how would a grant to do a new sign that can't be larger solve their problem of needing a larger sign?
Well, I think that is a larger question, Mayor, and I will say the signage ordinance, certainly we want to respect it in every way. For instance, I believe the development on Leslie Road was proposed as a potential monument sign, although the extension of electricity to a monument sign on Leslie Road was not either affordable to the project or for the proprietor. So I'm looking for ways to be able to make an increase, a visibility improvement to signage within the scope of the existing signage ordinances. So it will be really on a case-by-case basis. It's come to my attention that some of the businesses have asked for, say, some of these zip flags. And so I want to make sure, not of me, sir, but I'm trying to skate into how do we solve this problem. And so creating a program that is both responsive to the existing codes as well as the needs of the businesses, I think is a balancing act. So I just wanted to make you aware that this is a project that I'd like to propose and work on with the board for this coming fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay. Additionally, I've proposed an increase in our commercial real estate incentives program. It is an introductory program initially proposed at $20,000. I'm proposing an increase of $80,000 to $100,000. Increase of software licenses. There are 2 programs that are not included in our current software suite. One of them being Placer AI, which is a software program that helps us pinpoint exactly what happens and what is needed in the retail trade area, and uses AI as a tool to be able to pinpoint both demographics as well as provide the intelligence on who the individual site selector is for that particular brand. So Placer AI is one of the software programs that I'm proposing, as well as a civic serve economic development tool that is all-inclusive, from looking at incentives and commercial real estate customer relationship management.
So
software.
concerning Placer AI, just to the point, we had that,
Yes, sir.
and the EDC did not use it hardly at all. In fact, the only use of it was from Glenn running examples to show the board how it could work, but they never used it. And so I think part of the decision prior to your arrival was utilizing the software from the comptroller's office, showing actual tax receipts as well as trends in the area. But it seems like for our, I have to acknowledge our limited use of that, would that be, seems like it should be one or the other, but not both. It's like, I need to dig a post hole, but do I buy a $3 million earth murder equipment, or do I just go get a shovel?
Sure.
Right.
No, I appreciate and want to acknowledge the importance of being conservative in any fiscal expenditure. And I'm studying it very carefully. But the reason that I recommend Placer AI is it is not only advanced since perhaps my predecessor and my predecessor's predecessor, but they're adding additional tools associated with Placer AI that will help us pinpoint what is needed in the retail trade area, who is the site selector associated with that particular brand. The existing sales tax software that we do use, and I do watch carefully, are more retrospective as opposed to prospective in terms of planning, if that makes sense. In other words, we look forward as opposed to existing or behind us. Knowledge of both is necessary to be able to do prospecting and retail recruitment.
And if I may, there's been some measure of understanding that I've gained on Placer AI also that could help us as far as we just had an event, right? And we all are estimating, I wonder how many people were out there. So Placer AI pings off of phones, personal cell phones, government cell phones, whatever phone that is in the area, to be able to, you literally can draw a circle and say, I want to know how many people came through this area and when. You can dial it down to that. You can actually dial it into, and if I speak in error, please adjust me, but you can even have patterns that you can track for visitation to a business and those type of things. It's not like they're tracking a person, they're tracking
Numbers.
pings.
That's good.
I realize that it is an adjustment from what may have been done in the past, sir, and I respect what you're saying, but nonetheless, what Henry's explaining is is in line with what Placer can accomplish. So it's a sophisticated tool that helps us not only do retail recruitment, but identify more about the retail trade area such that we're more effective at recruitment.
No, no, I totally understand. Personally, I've used it. I'm well aware with Placer. I
And I,
utilize that, but,
whenever you're eliminating the guessing game, it's good. So if you can use it and, actually get counts and not be guessing or be subjective about it, you can get more work done for sure.
Sure. Data is always the best way to make good decisions versus, guessing game, for sure.
I also believe that it would not be an underutilized tool.
Particularly since you're looking at the only economic developer you have. So we're working hard to use the resources that we do have, sir. And software is a very important part of being able to be effective. So thank you. Okay. Moving further along, I've increased the hotel feasibility study line item from 5,000 to 25,000 K. I've proposed an increase to the targeted industry study from $15,000 to $60,000. To be completely transparent, these are increases that I have seen as a result of doing some research on existing targeted industry studies that are being done by other communities our size, not San Antonio, but communities that are our size looking to accomplish some of the same objectives. I've also increased the master plan park improvements line item from $500,000 to $850,000 to accommodate for that $350,000 rollover in the event we don't expend it this fiscal year. So it will be included in that line item. And then I made a small decrease in our debt service from $328,875 to $328,284 in association with our actual debt service schedule. So the proposed revenues that we're proposing will balance at $4,072 and $4,072,409 with the equal amount of proposed expenditures, with a use of fund balance of $1,374,409. And these are associated with primarily one-time expenditures. Hopefully, moving forward, we'll see a likewise increase in revenues from those efforts. In summary, this is our budget broken out into individual categories that I know we are wanting to accomplish. That is the bottom line that we're looking at for fiscal year 2027. You'll see that the expenditures are slightly higher than we've seen in past years. We just need to be very aggressive with economic development and really focusing on community impact in the near term. So I stand for questions, and I appreciate your time.
start at the same, Buck.
It's a lot of information. I love what you're doing, though. It's nice to see the aggressiveness. And as I've mentioned to you in the past, I do like that the Walk of Fame in Old Town. I think that's very creative. And I think I've mentioned to you, I'm like, who did that? You know, that really draws in a new crowd. It keeps the current crowd. I'd really like to see that move forward. I think that really would enhance Old Town.
That was part of my original presentation. I kind of blew past that, Councilman, but you're absolutely right. Having vision and having a plan of how to increase and create a destination for Helotes to be a place where you can come and see the stars that have shone brightly in Helotes. I think it's a critical opportunity for us to really lean into what we have and celebrate who we are at the same time as really improving and enhancing the look of Old Town.
Make it more of a destination than it already is. And like you said, maybe the hotel things, get the heads in the beds, you know, let's keep our guests in town and keep getting in their pocket.
I will say one thing, and there's been some discussion about it. In our budget, we have a line item for land acquisition feasibility. I am still very strongly in favor of looking at land acquisition as a strategy to attract and recruit business. It is an effective strategy that other communities are having success with, to be able to use land as an attraction, as an incentive to make investments in the community. I also recognize that we have to look outside of our box. We have to look outside of our boundaries and begin to discuss, literally the annexation and ETJ opportunities that lay outside of our doors. I know we have a lot on our plate. I'm very excited to be here, very honored to be your economic developer, and looking forward to a successful new year.
Well, I know I say it a lot to you, but what a great job that you're doing. You have raised the bar for economic development in Helotes. The budget and the way it ties into the strategic plan, which this is the first true strategic plan that I have seen from the EDC with actual measurable goals. And it's not just a document. You've already started implementing a lot of the tactics and activities that are in the plan that you worked on with the board. And now we just need to make sure it aligns with the city's future comprehensive plan. But you've brought a great vision and very creative ideas, and I'm also glad to see that you've increased the budget in some of those line items. Obviously, we don't have to spend exactly that amount, I understand that, but I think there's a bit of ground that we need to be making up for, and it's going to require a spend.
Well, and I appreciate those kind words, Councilwoman. I will say that it is all about leadership. Every community is different. Every community has different priorities, different goals, different dreams, different aspirations for itself. My goal is to support you all and the needs of this community to the best of my ability. I believe that sales tax and commercial real estate values are the way to do that. And so I will give the credit to where it's due. It's to you all and to my board for doing what it takes to be able to find and recruit and also build confidence in our community and in our Economic Development Corporation. So thank you very much, all of you.
I don't have any questions. You're doing a great job, and I like your plan.
Yeah, I mean, your enthusiasm is contagious, and I appreciate it, and your hard work and vision. And I love that you're focusing on Old Town, which I think is really important, and it has so much potential, so I'm excited about the future. Thank you.
Greg?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate the presentation. I'll be brief. I want to echo Council Member McGowan on the need for the city master plan to be the overarching statement of what we want to be as a city that will ultimately align with and give direction to the EDC. So this is wonderful at the EDC level, and we now need to ensure that we as a city have an updated plan that can serve as the overall guide, not just for the EDC, but for the rest of the city. And I appreciate the accountability measures. I'm counting on the accountability measures that are built into what's been presented. I think the increased budget is well justified. I mean, essentially spend money to make money. And I think that having a plan to review and assess how well we're doing that, what steps are going well and what needs revision as we go forward is going to be vital. So as the liaison to the board, I'm very happy to see this presentation, to watch their work as it develops over the next few months.
Thank you, Greg. I guess I'll conclude some remarks in this, and that yes, we are very happy to see activity. Of course, obviously, proof of being in the pudding, right? What do we get? So a couple of thoughts just to permeate, perhaps, especially since we have a board meeting tonight. We're sitting there with 20% of the savings of the city with 2.3% of the employees, which gives us about a 20 months worth, 25 months worth of reserves in that organization. Of course, you also show expending $4 million in 1 year in 27, which would be all of the money, and or the vast majority, because you're talking, hoping to have 4.5 million. You're showing revenues earlier that eventually by 29, you'd be getting up to 3 million, but you're spending 4 million a year in 27. So I'm curious where that math ends up, because it seems to be a little upside down. But regardless, as we take a look, so again, these are just commentaries for consideration, not really discussion, debate, just a thought. We're not buying Placer AI and Comptroller and 6 or 7 studies to fill out that one little space of the nail salon that closes up and somebody else picks up that spot. We're obviously utilizing that for the development of the large properties that we have in the area for major developments. We have 3 properties, and they're all held by people that don't want to sell them. So my question and concern is, do we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars this year and every year going forward to study what should go on a property that they're not going to sell? For example, I could spend all sorts of money what to do with your house or your house, but it's not for sale. So I don't, at what point do we say, okay, we're not quite ready for studies if the person isn't willing to sell? There seems to be a balance there, so that is only a concern for consideration. I do understand the need for developing research of what do people want, what are trends, or where are people going, where are people shopping. But if all of the people are going to Saks Fifth Avenue, they're not going to build here, because of other reasons, right? Not enough traffic for all these other items. So I'm just, and of course, what I think doesn't matter in any of this, just a word of concern is like, how much money do we spend on studies on property that either isn't for sale, they don't want it for sale, or they want the control? They're doing in reverse what you guys are wanting to do: buy a property and control it. They already own it and they want to control it. So that's something to balance before we spend, I would think, before we spend huge amounts, like literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of various studies prior to working with the landowners. But I know that's part of your job, is to work with the landlords. So I look forward to finding out the results of those sales and marketing efforts.
Well, Mayor, I really appreciate your comments, and I know that this is not subject, you mentioned this is not a subject for debate right now. I really welcome the opportunity. Right now, the economy is in a position where we really need to be planning ahead before the curve goes up, and before we annex additional land, we need to have a plan to be able to execute on that plan to support your sales tax and property tax value needs. So I am sensitive to the fact, having been an elected official, how important it is to be accountable for every dollar. I am one who conservatively over budgets in order to make sure that I'm spending within my limitations, if that makes sense. Sure. My expectation is to see budget savings in those lines rather than, spending at that level. But nonetheless, I appreciate what you're saying, and I value it very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So we'll go back to the slides that are adjusted. So as it relates to capital improvement, I didn't know I left the gravy bucket there. My bad.
No.
Squirrel. Sorry.
You left it. I left it for you.
For those who have zero context, I have a candy bucket and I call it gravy, and I leave it everywhere. But nonetheless, if you can't have a little bit of levity inside of a budget meeting, you should all just go home. All right, so as it relates to capital improvement, big picture, we added a slide and/or adjusted information that it's just basic information that we just put on here that you're familiar with. And we'll continue on to the next couple of slides are information that you've seen, no adjustment. It's regarding current year capital planning. And this slide, although it's very tiny on the screen, you'll see that we have adjusted and pushed over some of the information for the request, meaning we have pushed some things instead of having I think it might have been a $12 million, 2027. We went back to the departments and divisions and was like, okay, listen, what year do you perceive that we can push these items left and right? And so what you have in front of you as a FY27 initial request is a $1.54 million forecast or request. And the thing that is new on there shows at the very bottom the Old Town walkable trails. And again, that number for 2029 will be a 1.6 instead of the $1 million. But the rest of it is just pushed left and right. And we have you'll notice that under the department header, you have FY27 like -1, 1A, 2, 3, whatever, per that department or division. That is their prioritization of those requests from their department or division. And so we wanted to make sure you understood that instead of, if you're looking to say, where can we push something left or right, I would much rather you see what that desire is prioritized wise from the divisions instead of us just giving you a random list. I hope that helps. Okay. And we'll continue moving forward. And we'll stop on an update. You've seen these slides here. I think maybe the next one or so. This one here actually is so Mayor, this is the same slide that we showed last time with an adjustment because of the move of some things that have come in and or not moved around. So so essentially it's the projection type that you were looking at. Okay. And then we'll move on to, there's a specific actions one. I think it should be close. Yes, thank you. I apologize. Some are tiny and some are.
Oh, no, it's me. I got out of the full screen, so we can
Okay.
zoom in.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. All right, and so on this slide here, again, is reiterating how important it is for the property tax rate determination. We'll finalize the cost of living or the wage distribution I anticipate at the end of all operational needs. And then keeping in mind that we have a compensation study that's going on. In fact, just as just a little highlight note, on tomorrow we'll have one of the reps on campus. So we're walking through that process steadily. We've given them some information to make them more effective, and then they'll walk away from here on Thursday night to be able to do some more of their crunching of numbers. Again, we're waiting on healthcare information, and we anticipate that we'll have it very soon. Okay. So we're getting really close on the Bexar County county assessors numbers. We anticipate that we'll literally have them on Monday. What time Monday? I don't know. They've been holding their pattern really well of reaching out to us and getting us numbers. Our overall number for valuation has been shifting. So to the end of Councilmember Caraway mentioned about the new exemption. That's the series 154 exemptions, and there's 4 of those that actually do show on our projection.
Yeah, is that confirmed? I thought that we got something from business property in our city, and you're saying we don't get anything?
No, what I'm saying is that new exemptions for that, there's an exemption. It starts with 154, and then there's an alpha after that. Well, there's alpha, delta, foxtrot, whatever it is, right? So in our most recent iterations, we have 4 of those lines with reductions for each one of them. So it's about maybe $13,000 of reduction.
Okay.
Something of that nature. I don't lock me in on the exact number if you would. So, but we have something that shows up in each one of those.
So there is, yeah.
So each time over the last few Fridays, we've been getting information updates from the assessor's office. And we anticipate that the last one, based on their communication, will be on the 20th, and that should be final. They were at the 90+ percentile, I think, somewhere around maybe the 10th or so of July. And so that number has actually, our overall valuation number has been steadily going down. So let's say we started out at 1,260,000,000, or actually 269. We are at, as of this past Friday, 1.157, if I remember right. Yeah, 1157. And so that number has steadily been going down. Final will come on Monday is our anticipation, and then we'll be able to run more scenarios based on the guidance that you all want us to run scenarios on. So on the next one, I took the liberty to just go out to look at the past tax rates, and I did rounding, simple rounding to the second digit as opposed to the fifth digit, and just give that as a listing. Some unknowns.
Can I just point out, I see 5 cities under 30 cents, it's actually 3.
Okay,
Some of those cities have an additional amount from the ESDs.
understood. Yes, I didn't attempt to like do the associations to bring the totals. I was just going by just what the chart said for the city level, city perspective only,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right,
The trade-off there would be, we have 31 cents, but we also provide dispatch. And a lot of those cities that have higher rates don't even have dispatch. So it's relative, you're going just total sum service, regardless of what service they're providing, this is the tax rate.
yeah, I'm not making
there's offsets in
ordinance
both directions.
assessments inside of that. That's off of the website. The link is there.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Then we got some assumptions, anticipations, challenges, some things that we do not control, all these some decision points. Again, cost of living. So there was a question that came in, and I think I addressed it a little bit. Actually, it's on this slide. There was a question related to the area, and so HR is always in different discussions and different forums and all those things. So this was actually something that we pulled from some of that communication. In general, it's about a 3% COLA that is anticipated for FY27 for just the average overall from the conversation that was going on. Some are doing COLAs, some are doing merit increase, but overall, the budget target is about 3% for wages in the general area. Now, again, that is all dependent on, when it comes to individual cities, what they have going on. So it could be like, again, the discussion of whether one doesn't pay dispatch or one is paying a certain amount for ESDs, or one doesn't have any emergency services or very little emergency services, a whole bunch of things. And some, I know of at least one community that is going to be likely, again, it's not determined final, but they're anticipating that it's going to be way, way low. However, they're already at the top of the game when it comes to how they pay wages. So it's not an equal sum when you do the comparisons. On the next slide, you'll see that, because there was a question about the federal government in a previous workshop, so I pulled numbers regarding that, and the numbers are there regarding, the Social Security, the Department of War, and also DOD, civilians that are federal. So those numbers are represented there.
So the federal government for 26 got 1% raise. Am I reading that correct? Social Security got 2.
Emergency, imminent threat, National Weather Service. We're good.
All right. I
Blood
guess
warning.
We take a
Until
pause
7 p.m.
until phones
slow down, but, yeah, Social Security is, I think, Greg, you were asking that question on federal, and again, it's a point of data, but not really, specifically relevant to our city one way or the other, but it's as a point of interest. Social Security was 2.8%. Department of War, of course, they're during a war, so that was part of the reason for an increase due to combat and pays and whatnot. But the federal government across the board for 26 gets 1% this year.
Okay, so let's not stay there, that's depressing.
Over the past 5 years, I think it ranged between 1.25 and 2.3 or 2.6.
I've lived that life, sir.
Yeah, so you understand that you can confirm that from your own paycheck.
But in the same sense, you're in a system with 1 million plus people, so. All right, so this next section is new yes, next section is new. So one of the things, policy-wise, we actually need to sort something out. We've had the multi-factor associated with getting into our IT system is a secondary layer of protection. And so we had to bring that on, but we need to actually put something in policy. Now, I'm not asking for the sake of sorting out the policy in this meeting. I'm not asking that, just know that it's gonna come back. It also, the reason why it's coming to you, because it has a budget impact. Now, once we know what that is, and we hope that we can actually get that policy piece before the end of this fiscal year, that way we can do the back pay and get it squared away. So it's really just about getting that incorporated in. So you'll see the next slide is related to the positions that you've seen, and then following that page is the public works, the police bailiffs, and patrol. So ultimately, we're looking for the next steps. That the purple on the slides that you have is we're looking for next steps to be determinable for us so that we know which direction we go. These changes are not super substantive from a cost perspective. It's a style thing for the first one with Public Works. It will be literally a change from hourly to salary, as well as the position title change. I feel like I spoke to this before. I'm not sure why I feel like I haven't, but I think I've spoken to it. Next, we'll go to the next one, and you'll see the dollars and cents that are associated. So most everything is cost neutral. What did I apologize. I left the public communicator on there. Oh no, that's a reclass. That is a reclass. So that actually is where I had mentioned about a certain dollar amount on six. I thought it was 6, but I don't see the math. The math ain't mathing. So I may not have updated the dollar amount on that one. So nonetheless, that will be a reclass, and that's where I had mentioned earlier that it will end up being, if supported and supportable, it will be a true number 2 in that division. So, all right. So following that, we had discussions about holiday pay, and this would end up being a policy piece, but it's also in how we actually implement our pay structure. There's been, just for the sake of history, when we do comparisons of wages, many people look at base wages. Some people look at, certain categories, but ultimately everybody wants to look at the bottom line. Everybody wants to see that bottom line. We have had a mismatch. We've had a mismatch on an advertisement, and we appreciate bringing that up because we will be consistent in how we advertise. Whatever HR brings will be the one that gets advertised. But the reason for that was attempting to show the real bottom line in a very simple way. So when we do salary surveys, if the salary survey is built without certain columns, then it's possible that the holiday pay may not show up. But that's a part of the thing. You'll see on the next slide that I did a scenario where if we have in a salary or a wage line that starts out for current year at 41.7, the holiday pay plus the total, that would end up being, the line that really, when you go into the blue section, you'll see FY '26 rate on the right side. You'll see the 41 and the 44. That's what it is currently. Under that is the hourly rate at the one above it, and then the hour overtime, 1.5 holiday time. The difference, bottom line, would be the yellow on the very bottom where it shows you the 4,800 versus the 5,100. The, in this scenario, ultimately, what we would, there is no diminish to the employee's pocket in rolling the holiday pay into the base. I've had several questions about this internally, and really the tie goes to the runner on this. It is a benefit that increases to the employee. So there are some additional costs that the city ends up paying as a result, but nonetheless, that's because base pay is what certain other things like insurances are levied against. So that would change that base pay number. But there's no loss again to the employee in this strategy. The next one is IT profiles. This is not a decision point for us in this moment. The reason why it's on the screen is because we archive information. I don't even know how you all would feel about the potential by attrition if we went to position instead of name for emails. If we do the names like we are doing, we end up archiving those accounts so that we have access to them for the sake of if there's TPIA and other things that we need to go back into. For me, this position, both for our phones and for my emails, I actually don't have to have my name on the things. I actually ask, Jamie, can you make sure they don't put my name on the phone? But nonetheless, for me, it's about the position. Many cities have their city manager or city administrator on a position account. So that's something that we've been thinking about for the sake of archiving and costs and those type of things.
So I'm sorry, Henry, so you're saying that would be for the city council as well? Would it just say your place, like council member, place such and such?
It's a discussion that we're having internally, but we would not actually, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
But we would not attempt to move on that for you all without your concurrence. So, but it is a cost savings
Right, yeah.
type of activity when you look at archiving and all these other things. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
but not everything that I have on the slides in these sections is like, hey, we got to do this. That's not my point.
No,
It
yeah.
has a financial impact, and we're looking for, is there guidance that you all would have on these type of things? The next one is some concepts that have been discussed over the last 2 years. So one is compressed works week, PTO calculations, sick time ended up going away some years ago. So I'll tell you, when it comes to a compressed work week, I'm not entertaining, like, we're gonna close on we'll say Friday. I'll just say that. So in case y'all haven't heard me say it, I'm not looking to close on a Friday. Now, in a scenario, that's why number 3 is actually red. In a scenario, if we were to look at going to this, I would actually have our team staggered so that we still have the same number of open and available hours. So if someone had a reduced workday on a Thursday, someone else would have a reduced workday on a Wednesday, or something of that nature, so that the operation of the shop is still viable. So
this is, I'm not even sure what we're talking about here. First of all, it's a non-budget item, so I'm not sure be in here. That's really administrative decision. But what you're suggesting here is instead of working 9 to 5, that we work to 9 to 5:30, 4 days a week, and then Friday leave at 3.
ish, or.
Or work to 5:45 and then leave at 2 on Friday?
So the fifth workday would be either 4 hours, 6 hours, or 5 hours.
So, you know, again, this is an administrative decision, not really a budget for city, but, yeah, that's gonna be massively confusing, and all sorts of phone calls coming. I was there by 5 and y'all were shut. I was there by 3:30 and you
Well, I
guys
thought
were
you were
shut.
saying.
Listen,
But
the
staff-
number of
It would be
hours, the
open.
number of
Yeah.
business
You're
hours
rotating per person.
do not
personnel.
change.
And how do
Like
we do
you
that
were
with a
saying.
staff of one? Our departments with one or
So I'll say it
fewer
very
than
plainly,
5 people?
Vanessa wouldn't have this schedule.
So, and then now what you've got is differentiation and changing of.
Understood.
So
But I wanted to make sure that it is a benefit type, but it is a non-cash benefit.
Understand, but
Yeah.
it can't be police, it can't be fire. So you're really
That's
just
correct.
talking
We've had that
public works and admin if the individual sections have 5 or more people. And even then, it really can't be, because then what do you do at the 6th?
It doesn't have to be 5 or more people. It just means that there's coverage for the shop. And it's just, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it works even if you have 2 people,
Yeah.
because the number of hours available to the public doesn't change.
It's a benefit, I think, because sometimes people need to leave before 5 to get something done, whether it be a doctor appointment, pick up a child or something. And they might not mind working a little late on another day and missing all the traffic and getting that early time. It's like a benefit, like USAA does or something, you know, to me, I look at it as an employee benefit because, hey, if I have that one day I can get off a little early, I can get these errands done, you know, or something like that.
And I've experienced this in several organizations types.
Yeah.
And in a municipal setting. We had what we called it Too Long Tuesdays, because we stacked a lot of days on Tuesday. That happened to be meeting night, primary meeting night. Everybody stayed up until a certain point. And then another thing that we did, and again, I'm not proposing that it's here, but the way that we had it structured was, it was traditionally, we closed on half a day Friday, and then during the summer, we actually had Fridays off because we accelerated our time during the week. So we've done all kind of combination. I'm not asking to bring all those intricacies. I'm bringing this this has been a conversation over the last 2 years. Everything I'm showing you in this section is not as specific, we gotta do, or we need to do, or whatever. I'm anticipating also that some of the compensation discussion from what's coming up with this study would maybe speak to some of this stuff anyway. So, but like I said, this whole section has been conversations for at least 2 years since I've been here. So, okay, going forward. So I did some more homework, and again, the discussions of, hey, why don't we have sick time and we have PTO, and so vacation and sick time history. And so actually, part of the reason why I'm showing this also, as it relates also to the rolling holiday pay, I want to make sure if we make a real change, we have documentation. I don't like having big changes and not have the history of it anywhere. Because I anticipate that if we go take the holiday in, sometime in the future, maybe about 9 years from now, somebody's gonna say, hey, how come we don't have? And then, because I know how these debates go internally, I just want to make sure that whatever decisions are, they're documented, and we can actually go and find when those decisions were made, whether it's on paper or in a meeting like this. So vacation and sick, I know that we were able to find in the personnel manual histories where the sick time went down and went away, but the number of days and hours, however you calculated, just simply ended up being a reduction. And so people have been asking about, well, what about sick time? You know, what's the potential for having this as a real discussion? Sick time, if brought back, should not be a carryover 1 year to the next. And then it would just end up being a decision point on, if we do that, then what would that number be? So I have from 2011 some of the history that I was able to find thanks to HR. So thank you, Diana. But also I pulled the next slide after that, and next two slides actually have the words that came in that document. We had discussion about, okay, if there were any changes, whether it's incorporated sick a different way and or adjusting the PTO consideration, what could that look like? So some of that could be PTO. If you go to the next slide, I pulled the 2080. We'll go one more. The 2080 personnel versus the firefighters. What would that be? And ultimately, what I looked at was taking the year 5 and rolling it to the 0 year. So 16 days total time off earned could be looked at as a 21 day. Ultimately, in this chart, of course, the numbers are not like spot on, meaning exact, but what I did not do as a consideration was increase the total bottom line of how many days off at max. So I did not adjust that because I think in one scenario it is what's the bottom on that one? Is that 32, and the other one on the fire one is stays the same. Also in the just the way that I put forth that scenario.
So Henry, again, this is kind of off topic because it's non-budget, but the reason why we don't have sick time is because we have PTO. It's usable whenever you want. We don't even have assigned vacations. So the opposite is we have signed vacations, which means you don't get to bank your PTO. You get these number of vacations, and you have to take them, and you schedule them in November for the following year, and that's what it is, so you can do your manpower. That's what all of San Antonio Police and Fire, for example, and other positions are when you're on PTO. But we get sick time that you have to be sick on and bring your doctor's note, and then you have vacation time, which are scheduled, and you have to take it at that time. So what we have here in Helotes is actually much more employee friendly. They get paid time off, which is a combination of what would have been for sick hours, would have been vacation combined. Now you get A plus B, you get C number of hours to be able to take whenever you want. And manpower adjusts accordingly on the fly. So discussing to go back would be a reduction of current employee benefits and work environment. And so if it is to answer the question, well, how come we don't have sick time, is because you're getting more hours. Those sick hours were added to your paid time off category. You're already getting them, and you're getting to use them whenever, and you don't even have to be sick. So that's I would be hesitant to remove an employee benefit or go backwards. But if we do, we can certainly have scheduled vacations, and then you'd have separate vacation and sick time, and therefore they would actually have less days off that they could take. As far as you're taking a look at calculation for total hours to be carried over, part of that reason is if somebody works 30 years and never takes any time off and they have this huge, well, let them do that. Well, that's also destructive because part of health and well-being is making sure that somebody gets time off each year to, recalibrate. So that's what the whole theory behind having a limit to how many hours can be carried over. So again,
Well, I completely agree about that. I wouldn't even suggest that the carryover time would change
Right,
at
okay.
all. But nonetheless, I hear what you're saying. So okay. So can we move? Go forward?
Yeah.
Okay, please. All right, so I do have a non-recommendation related to budget, and that is related to right now we are a city that matches 7% 2-to-1, and TMRS is authorized, the state has authorized us to be throughout the state up to 8%. I do not recommend that we go to 8%, and there's several reasons why, and it's not something that is a consistent. Municipalities are not consistently going to 8%. So I don't recommend that we do that, just as a straight point on it. And then the last slide is what next steps are. So I yield at this point, sir.
very good.
Lots of information. Generally speaking, in the second workshop, we're bringing up discussions about specific capital improvement expenditures, particular line items of request, personnel, various large ticket items, or items that exceed normal operating budget items. And so for these discussions and particular items, let's start in reverse. Greg, we always end with you. Let's start with you, just in case we end up with technological difficulties.
All right, you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a lot in there to discuss, obviously. But I appreciate the hard work that went into presenting all of that and putting this together and highlighting the updates. I think my initial thoughts, I think about as it relates in particular to so for me anyway, that as I suppose for most of us, the tax rate's obviously important, but also the capital improvement projects. The potential for the benefits to the city of those sorts of things. I do see and hear from the administrator's presentation that sales tax, as we know, is volatile. Property taxes are not as robust as they once were or have been. And so there's concern on my part that we'll be able to meet the growing demands and needs of the city. The revenues are potentially declining. Or not, I should say, perhaps not increasing at the same rate that they have been. So I want to be cognizant of that. I also I look at the capital improvement plan and the requests for capital projects, and there's a number of things on there I think that merit a lot of that merit discussion, and there are other opportunities for us to make improvements to our city. And I think that's really for me something that sort of where my thoughts dwell on what is the best use of our resources. We are in a good financial position. I think you outlined that at the start, Mayor. And that's testament to what you and the council have done over the past several years. And I think that's terrific. And I think now what is the best way for us to deploy our resources to continue to serve our citizens' needs and to enhance our city. I think I'll leave it there for right now and appreciate the opportunity to chime in.
Thank you, Greg. Ann?
I do have just a question in general because I'm new at this and I did get some information today that helped a little. I'm a little confused about when we approve an amount for, we did for 25, for 26, and it'll be listed there, the amount that was approved. And then let's say that it says it's for 300,000 for a certain department. And then I look at the projected that's going to actually be used, and let's say the projected says, well, we actually only used 200,000. But then the requested amount for the next year is 400,000. So I'm kind of confused when I see these big discrepancies between what was requested and then now what we see what is actually used. And then the requested amount is even bigger than the previous request. How do I mean, what happens that we don't use all the money? And why is the next request even bigger than the year before if we didn't even use it this year? I'm
Excellent.
that gap, I don't understand. So I'm new to this, so.
Sure, excellent. I can answer your question in general, and
Okay.
then it helps if you have a specific line item, but that happens in two general reasons. One is, for example, most often happens in large department lines, particularly under labor. For example, police department has somebody either retire or for other reasons leaves. Okay, well, we had budgeted for 31 positions and we only had 30 or 29. Or then we had somebody go to the call up for military, and so we're not paying them, but we're holding their position, so we can't even replace them. And it takes getting the employment posted and then interviews, and so there ends up being months where we have one whole year we're not paying somebody but holding their spot, and 2 other people's spots where we haven't paid them.
Okay.
Now they get in there, now all of a sudden, we were budgeted to pay, I'm picking around, $1 million, but we only paid 900,000 because we had some vacancies. So next year, we have the million because of full plus raises, and so you see an increase there. The other reason why you would see it is, for example, most specifically, today, we heard that example from EDC. They had $350,000 projected for the improvements of the park, and anticipated that it was gonna be built this year, and unfortunately, it won't even start till October 1 or thereabouts, and so it will be paid next year. So there's, on that line, you'll see budgeted for 350,000, actual 0. But next year, it's gonna be 850,000, because they're planning on doing $500,000 of stuff for that year,
Right.
plus the 350 that they didn't spend this year, and so it moved over. In the meantime, at the bottom of the line for the audited funds, that difference, if it was budgeted for 350 and say we spent 290, let's say it came in under bid, okay, well, that extra 50, $60,000 ends up transferring down and goes to unrestricted reserves, and that's where our savings.
So it really doesn't affect what we're asking for this coming year. Then I think the other thing I'm having is, I have to say, the capital improvements that are requested, I have to trust that that department needs them, because they know better than I do, really. And so if we didn't have enough money, I would like to see the priority of needs, which I think is important, because just in case. But right now, what I'm understanding is that we have this huge amount in unreserved funds, and I feel like if the departments really need, there's certain capital improvements that need to be done, I don't understand why they can't be done if they're necessary. I trust that the departments need these things, or they wouldn't ask for them. I think that it would help to prioritize them, but I also see that we have this surplus, and I know we shouldn't use it all up and then be broke, but at the same time, you know, I see other counties who their roads are a mess, or, you know, there's dangerous situations, and, you know, we need to take care of these things while we have the money, is what I feel like, and use the money in a way that the capital improvements are long-lasting and they help the community, and we feel good about them. But you keep saying that we have all this extra money, and I just feel like at some point you have to trust that the department is saying, we really need this and it needs to be done. And I don't have any problem with their requests, you know.
Certainly, you're looking at the people that need to prioritize those. That's your job, and council's job.
But
And that's
what I'm
not being,
saying
that's really
is-
not the caller, that's
Yeah.
what, you're, as a city council person, it is your job to listen to all these requests and say the request total $100 million, but we can't do it, so which one are you gonna pick?
Yeah.
And that's the
But you're
job.
telling me that we have plenty of money to meet those requests.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, because I thought
But
when we talked last time about the fund, the unreserved funds, that you said we could dip into those.
What I am saying
Okay.
is yes and no. I am saying that we have more savings in terms of measurement of number of months of reserves. So unrestricted funds that can be spent on anything we want by definition, unrestricted. We have other restricted funds that are set aside for particular bonds or payments or black box tax for roads, for example, all the condition on roads. We have separate money set aside. We don't have to worry about that out of our budget money because it's handled completely in a separate tax that goes straight into that. So on those unrestricted, where should we, and Henry brought up on a chart at the beginning, where do we end up? Where's the landing spot where we should stay long-term? You listen to large cities, they say 2 to 5 months. Smaller mid-size, 6 to 9 months. We're now at 15 months. So is there room to spend some money and in a measured way in a single year, short-term budget deficit manner to be able to spend a little bit of money more than what we're bringing in to bring us back down in soft land so that we have plenty of reserves in case an emergency comes up, to avoid the problem where you have, oh, we have all these requests, we'll spend our whole $13 million on it, and then we have no money for something that comes up expected,
It
right?
doesn't seem like that's the case right now.
Well,
That we don't
not-
have a lot of wasteful requests, but that's okay. I understand.
No, I understand.
what you-
We-
I just wanted to get the big picture because
Right.
I don't feel, yeah, I mean, you're asking for
The request, the current total request that was presented in the last one far exceed all of our money plus restricted funds. So we can't do that. Even if it was just all of our money, all of the things that were included in students and things that we ended up, you know.
But I
pulling
do
off.
think that it would help for the departments to prioritize the request.
Correct.
That would help. I mean, that's the comment I have.
So perhaps the direction here is that by department, take a look at the each prioritizing. Now the question has to come to council to be prepared for this when it comes up. When Public Works has their 1, 2, 3, and PD has their 1, 2, 3, and every department has their 1, 2, 3, and you take a look at how much money we feel we can spend on capital improvements, are you, 1, 2, their 2 might be more important than this department's number 1. And that is, again, not their job to debate amongst themselves, is our need for a fire engine, for example, I'm gonna pick something on fire that I don't think anybody thinks we need, so that's why it's a safe. They say, hey, you know, fire departments have a ladder truck. We need 120, that's a $2.3 million for a ladder truck. We don't have a building that's above 2 stories. We don't need a ladder truck. And if they have everything else and that's their number 1, you guys have to decide and say, well, yeah, it's their number 1, but they have
But I would
no
ask them.
computers
I
at
would-
court. So
yeah.
that's, their number 1 has to be more important than their number 1. And that's your job as council to, when we look at those lists, which has been provided, not individually prioritized, but set there by department to determine where you want to spend and how much you want to spend.
Yeah,
falls
yeah,
on
that
council.
clarifies a lot. That clarifies a lot. And
Thank you.
that's-
Those good, important
that's all
questions.
I-
important
yeah.
questions. David?
I have no questions on the budget.
Okay.
I think that's adequate, or more than adequate to meet our needs.
Sabrina?
I agree with Councilmember Caraway. I also want to talk a little bit about one of the largest unknowns is we need to, I think we need to continue moving forward with closing the significant salary gap that we talked about last year between our community and some of the neighboring municipalities. I know the salary survey results, we won't have those in time for this budget. I would like for the council to consider doing a mid-year salary adjustment based on the results. I think we took one incremental step this past budget season, and I think that salary survey is going to tell us that we still have some room to go. I think we need to continue to prioritize employee retention and recruitment in the budget. But one of the larger unknowns is going back to the earlier comment of we don't have a comprehensive plan. And that plan is going to have to be funded. It's going to identify infrastructure projects, it's going to identify other needs, and we need to make sure that we can adequately fund it. And I think we just need to keep that in mind, that we're building this budget that we're going to approve without really knowing how it ties into a plan, because we don't have one. So I think that's a consideration that we need to keep in mind.
Are you requesting to include that as a budget item to be completed next year or to be done prior to approving this year's budget?
Well, it can't be done. And I
Right.
mean, a comprehensive plan is going to involve significant community input and data and research analysis. But as far as using any of the money in the unrestricted general fund, just remember that I think some of that will end up going toward projects that are identified in the comprehensive plan once that's completed.
Sure. All right, so if I understand correctly, you're looking to add to this budget a line item for comprehensive plan.
That's already in the budget.
So if,
So are you looking for additional funds to it, or is the funds allocated thus far towards that sufficient? Or are you requesting that we put feelers out to figure out what that might cost so we can get a sharper number?
No, I think the amount that the city administrator put in the budget, last time we looked at it, was adequate.
Okay, so no changes to what we
To the
already
line
have.
item, no.
Okay.
It's gonna be the actual execution of the plan.
Okay. All right.
I guess I'm curious, how are we looking on bringing other cities on board with emergency dispatch? Is that moving forward? I can't find it, unfortunately, back in the document. How's that looking? Is that,
Has not happened since 2016, 14, 12, since we lost everybody. So we've been going solo for many, many, many years.
it said something about trying to bring on other.
Right, so I prefer not to say the cities that I've been trying to open.
But there
up
are conversations.
Right, but they're stalled, to be straight with you. I mean, there was one city that I looked in their budget book and saw that they had mentioned offloading dispatch responsibilities in like 2 or 3 budget books, and now that's not their perspective anymore. So,
The reality of that is we do have excess capacity. It has been a desire to try to find other municipalities. There are really 3 major cities that are in our situation, all of them with excess capacity, all of them saying, why don't you close down and come with us? Well, why don't you close down and come with us? And so none of them can really afford to stay open by themselves, but all of them are finding a way. All of them want to handle everybody else. All of them could handle each other, but all of them are still standing solo. And so either through attrition or, and there's 7 cities that Bear County dispatch still hasn't been able to take on. It's been 5 years. We were 3rd in line for consideration to get, and we already got a price, $170,000 a year, and now we're like, what, 700 some thousand a year? I forget the number, but, so that puts you an idea, but for 5 years, they still can't even say what the other cities are, because they don't want to give them a chance to be serviced by somebody besides who they feel that's their customer. So they're really doing some of these other cities a disservice by keeping them in the woods. So it is an ongoing general directive.
Opportunity's always
to
there.
try to market, but you know, our actual marketing efforts have met either some progress and then shut down, or busy with other things.
I'm just kind of curious how that was.
yeah, it's not a closed item for me. It's still an open item, and I actually have another city that I don't think I've even talked to you about that I've been waiting on an appointment with.
They need to come to the top shelf organization, is what it is.
Absolutely.
I actually have a couple more things. Going back to the ad valorem,
Yes.
I'd like to see the impact on the budget if it was reduced.
Impact on the budget if it was reduced.
Yeah.
So the slide that we showed with the, I think where it'd be.
You talking my slide at the end?
After capital, going back down.
At the end.
It's close to the very,
The,
so it should be,
Should be before that, right?
oh, it's before the, actually, if you go that way. I show 191, but I don't know what it shows on yours. No, so let's go from there. I apologize, this,
A lot of slides.
Yeah, it should be well before that.
we're getting close. There we go.
Right there.
Is that it?
Yep.
That one.
Okay.
What number is that? What?
170?
70.
Thank you.
So, and seeing this is a slide that he asked me to speak on before, I'll speak to it here. This is just
What y'all want to do, this is a win, we're in a win-win situation. Don't reduce taxes, have greater increase in reserves, great. Want to spend some reduced taxes and manage our reserves, great. There is, my position, either way, it's a win-win. When we take a look at how much is a month of reserve, a month of reserve is, roughly, in round numbers, $900,000. So we have 15 months worth of reserves and change. So if we take a 10%, and I threw that out as a number, again, it's your debate on what you do. There's a certain requirement. As we pay down our debt, we're required to not charge people. Remember, our debt came in 2 bonds that the city, which is us by extension of filling the seats that were here before when they took it in, the city took on bonds by way of vote. We went to the people, asked them, here's your tax rate. Will you pay a higher tax for a period of time so we can get this done? The most recent one was the SAWS bond, which was about $4 million. It originally was going to be done on grant money by SAWS. Somebody from the city in the past went down there and wanted it done a certain way and lost the grant as a result. So we got it done the way that they wanted it, but it required us paying $4 million for it. And so we went to the city, the administration at that point went to the citizens again for vote and got a bond approved. Say, will you pay even higher taxes for this period of time? So now as we pay off those taxes, that's why you have operations property tax, and you have an INS, which is interest and sink fund. So in 21, even though we didn't have any money hardly to speak, and even though we were under significant inflation under Biden years, we still cut the property tax rate 4 years in a row. In fact, we cut it by 11%, by an even greater amount than what we're talking about now. And we did so because we kept paying off debt, and by paying off debt, we lowered the INS portion of the rate while maintaining the operations rate. So the net charge to the citizen, as far as taxable rate, now their house values increased, but the taxable rate kept decreasing. And it still allowed, even though the values increased, an actual increase in operations fund. And so everybody ended up being happy. We ended up having continued more money. So this proposal is that, okay, we have 15 months, 6 months times 900,000, there's 5.4 million to spend. If we take 400,000 of it from reduced taxes, we cut property taxes by 10%. We're now down to, 28 cents instead of 31, and we don't have to worry about, INS. We covered that, we're paying it off now, and we can afford it. With incoming efforts, we have all this talk about how amazing work the EDC is doing and all the money that we're spending there to spend money to make money. That's all gonna come in. We have a lot of increased income coming
Well,
up
do you
next
think,
year.
Mayor, that we should wait? I mean, I know that Henry said that the INS will go down. I guess we're gonna pay off one of the 2 debts, maybe a year, but then a balloon payment, so maybe it'll be a few years.
There's a balloon payment next year in 27,
In
right?
27.
27 and then 29.
I think it goes 27 through 29.
Yeah, so a series of large payments, so we're gonna be
So do you
facing,
think we should wait to lower that till those are paid off?
so certainly can do whatever. I'm not opposed or pro, I'm showing what a figure would be, and what that will do was will address a lot of the concerns that were brought that we have too much money. You're right, we do. So by charging a little bit less, and while we have some things that we know we're gonna get income from, McDonald's, Sherwin-Williams, the Bandera Ranch.
Sometimes you say we have too much money, but sometimes you say we don't.
Well,
But that's
I
okay.
said,
I
last
mean,
year,
we're just
we had
talking
an
about
external threat of worrying about our large income producer
Yes.
who hadn't signed yet. Are they signed? Do they move? They were looking to move. They decided to stay. That would have been tragic. So that would have been the wrong time, even though we had more money, to spend a lot of money when we might legitimately lose
Don't think
significant
we're gonna
income.
lose that.
Now they've signed a 10-year lease, that fear is significantly subsided. That doesn't mean we have to give it 10%, but what we should do is certainly, whatever debt we paid off this year, reduce the INS rate appropriately, which is required by law, by the way. Kind of have to. Now, we didn't do it last year, and it turned out to only be about $4,000 against a $13 million or $12 million budget, and we ended up with a $259,000 surplus, so we certainly could have done a little cut, but, so as a consideration. Similarly, raises, any raises at all, is gonna be coming out of, because if we do a zero budget, and I wanna prepare everybody in this room and remind everybody that what is quote-unquote the mayor's budget is in fact mayor and staff putting together and present, and we're required to present you zero sum. So when we present that, it's not gonna have raises, so please don't freak out when you see no raises or only 0.5% or only this, because we can't present that. It is going to be your determination how much out of spending you give, out of savings do we do, based upon your economic views and what you're concerned about. So if you're concerned about the future economic conditions, then you need to really consider not spending money on capital improvement and not giving any raises. If you are saying, hey, listen, the economic future is looking good, we can afford to spend some money, then we can look at raises and we can look at reduced property taxes, but at minimum, INS has to come down fractionally, not what I'm presenting, just fractionally equivalent to the amount that we paid off in debt this year. Because we're no longer paying that, we can't be charging the public for something that we're not paying anymore.
Yeah, and this is yours, right? Okay, so why are you recommending 5% salary increase to all departments except an additional 7, which would be 12% for the police department? Is that based on our surveys about the salaries?
So last year's salary survey, I still feel was of certain quality concerns, but it showed on a couple of our departments that were lower than average from a grouping of other cities. But it also didn't really take into effect our kind of holiday pay that was a separate category. With the raises that we gave last year, and according to that salary and counting our hidden holiday pay, our fire then got above average. Several of our other departments were already above average, but our police department was still below.
Wait,
Over the-
I'm sorry, Mayor, okay, you're saying that some of the departments were above average or above average? Okay.
According to that survey and after last year's raise. So now we're doing another detailed survey.
Right.
So when we take a look at it, it's like, are you paying an appropriate amount? Probably the most accurate representation of feedback, if you're paying enough money, is the number of applicants. If you put out a job request for $20,000 and you get 0 applicants, you put out the same application for $100,000 and you get 1 million applicants, you know that somewhere in there is the right amount. So our current pay, we used to not get very many applicants for any department.
Well, I have to interrupt you there because even though I think somebody said, oh, we had 40 applicants and all that, right now, I mean, my daughters were looking for jobs and there were like 200 applicants for a CBD store. So in certain jobs right now are just like crazy. It's, a lot of people are looking for work and stuff. But I understand what you're saying. If we have a good salary, then we know, but it might not mean that someone's above average just because they have a lot of applicants, is what I'm saying.
well, I
But I understand, and the question I wanted to ask is, Henry, when the person from the job survey is on campus, I think you said yet tomorrow or something.
Tomorrow.
Can you find out whether we're gonna have a preliminary, assessment in time? Because I think they were talking about at the meeting, they might have some kind of preliminary, job, some stats on the survey that would help. But I understand what you're saying.
So
And you're
that-
saying the police department was way under.
So they were, also they were under compared to our own, taking a look at PD versus fire within the city of Helotes by rank to rank.
But I just don't think that we can assume that because someone has a lot of applicants, that their pay is already above average or something, because it just may be that people are looking for jobs and there's not that, you know what I'm saying?
I understand,
That's
but
all.
I'm guessing that when you hire a clerk as an attorney, you hire a court clerk, and I'm getting the title wrong or whatever, there's a going rate,
and you don't just pay higher just for the sake of paying higher. If you're advertised and you get a flood of applicants, there's no need to pay more because you have a flood of applicants. That gives you a good idea. I'm not saying what it is, it's just whether it's sufficient or not. So in Helotes, we're getting 39 applicants for dispatch now that we have higher pay that we gave last year. We're getting 21 applicants, and we only got 3 for PD. So that indicates that there is an issue. It's not specific. So now we're trying to get specific information, but when you're asking me the question on a general
As to why.
initial thing to throw up on the wall, there is a glaring deficiency. I agree with Councilmember McGowan that there are some issues we have to take a look at. It appears that our remaining big issue is with PD pay relative to pay within public safety, within Helotes, also within comparison to other cities based upon last year's survey. I also have always been said that there is an issue with last year's survey, but that's why we're trying to get this. And to answer your further question, it was my specific request on our initial phone interview with our,
Mr. Holcomb.
Mr. Holcomb from our, the salary survey people, to try to get us at least some preliminary information by the end of July, beginning of August, so that we can at least have something to look at, even if it's not a finished product.
Correct.
And I am certainly not opposed to taking a look at, mid-year review, once we get the final numbers, to be able to take a look at, how we're going and see if there's ability to be able to make adjustments there. And
And
It's based upon last year's analysis.
Yeah, for the police.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's all we have to go with.
just a starting point.
And if I may, as it relates to application numbers, I gotta say that applications for police is way different than any other position, because there's the whole question of, are we sending them to initial training or not? And that sometimes is a barrier.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I will tell you that for the positions that I've advertised and or watched, we get a whole lot that simply don't qualify for the positions. So some of those are fluff.
Maybe a part of the 39. So
It
again,
is.
it's a dynamic.
I just don't know that we can talk about how many applicants we get, and when we're trying to determine whether someone, salary increases, I'd rather, yeah.
That's why I wouldn't use it. To Henry's point.
Yeah.
We could get 50 applicants, but if 45 of them are not qualified, we shouldn't be relying on that. No, that's not a good data point to use, in my opinion. Also, just for clarification on the slides, so the 5% COLA for all the departments, but the additional 7% for PD, was that requested by the department?
So, again, there's also, whether a department requests it or not, there's certain discussions that are had, so you're aware. Hey, how's things going on? Are we losing people? Are we getting people? What are the what kind of applicants are we getting? Are we getting any applicants? No, we have to tell them that this, and even though it's low, you get your buried holiday pay, so it's not as bad as it looks. And we do, this past, with fire, was a huge increase of qualified applicants that came in, for sure, when I was talking with Chief on, at post-raise in their first spot that came up available for that. It's just a point. What I do know is that decisions and discussions were made last year based upon that salary survey and a discrepancy, but was still a discrepancy in that very one between police and fire that was never really addressed. That's simply just putting that up there. It's also not unprecedented. Our Public Works Department, we gave between a 10 and a 15% salary adjustment to that department, while giving everybody else 5%, because it was generally, and again, people that were making, $12 an hour going to $13.50. It was just simply a necessity.
So, I'm sorry, but just so I'm clear, Mayor, so what you're saying, your justification or your rationale for doing the 12% is because, unlike the other departments, they were really way below. Is that what you're trying to say?
That was
Okay, I just want to make
initial-
sure I understand your reasoning, because,
The 7% was there just simply in response to discussions and assessments made from last year's salary survey addressed a lot, but not that area. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. So we'll find out more when we have another survey, but in the
Yeah.
meantime, that's all we have to, for the most part, to go forward with.
And once again,
I
it
just
is.
didn't know if you had some other reason that I was
No.
aware.
No, just,
Okay.
just around that part. So, certainly, the ultimate decision is in your all's hands. And really what we're looking at here is bottom line, yes, we're doing well as a city. Yes, we have a lot of savings. Yes, when we take a look at some of the expenditures that have been, the myriad of expenditures have been put up there, we are gonna get to pretty much a zero-sum game with zero raises and with zero tax cuts and with zero. So the question is going to be, as you're doing your analysis, taking a look at the excess money that we do have and what we have coming down the pike. Can we afford to give raises at all? I'm suggesting yes. Continue because of the growth that we're seeing, the economic outlook that we have, as well as known projects that are producing and will be producing this year, and a healthy influx of projects that are ready to turn dirt, and hopefully in the next 60 days on Bandera Ranch. We're counting days on that one. So again, whatever you want to do, this is your court. I'm trying to just define the question. You guys get to do whatever you want.
Mr. Mayor, may I jump in?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's good discussion, very much. And just want to, so I'll comment on a couple questions. A comment, it's really bigger picture, and that is, I think part of our discussion highlights the need that we ought to have a policy about reserves, what the appropriate level is. It strikes me as much too impressionistic at this point and not based on really any hard data other than sort of people's general sense. And I just think we need to have a policy outside of this budget discussion, but what is the appropriate reserve level that we ought to be targeting? My questions, so this is, I think, for the city administrator, really just I want to make sure I'm on the same page with you, and that is the capital project requests are not part of this budget at this point, correct?
The capital projects are not part of operational, so it is not
Right.
what's on the screen. There is a $200,000 transfer from operations
Right.
to capital on the screen.
And did I see correctly that the capital fund balance is around 1.1 or 1.2 million? Do I recall that correctly?
1.264 as audited, but then there was 600 or 700,000 that had been approved for expenditure in 26.
Okay. And then my other question, there was within the fire department's proposal for additional personnel. Is that included in the operational here that we're looking at?
There are no personnel increases
Okay.
listed
what
inside
I
the
thought.
operational budget.
Okay, thank you.
We get through. No, Buck, did you have anything else? Right?
No, not right now.
Buck, you have anything else? All right. Any final thoughts or rehash?
Let me take my glasses off so I can see what I'm saying. Ultimately, what it's going to come down to is what do we see as our estimates, right? So one of the things that the mayor and I talked about was on the sales tax side, some of the projections that are listed or anticipated. We talked about 3 businesses here in this meeting. I'll just call them A, B, and C. Out of the 3 businesses that are new to the city, I can only see 2 months of sales tax data. But I will say that what I know of the mayor's estimates for that business A, projected at potentially a $50,000 increase on the sales tax side. I confirm. What I can see looks like that's the pattern should it hold. I don't know what the other 2 are. As far as what those are, we've got questions as to why we can't see them yet based on when they open. But I'm looking for related to like the view that's on the screen. You know, I always do scenarios, and I'll bring you all scenarios of this is the 28 cent plus the forecasted COLAs. So that's what you're seeing on there. I'll bring you whatever it is that you want to see along the way. But I need for us to get closer. It's almost August. You vote twice in September. So, I'll stop there.
So one of my questions was, are we giving you enough direction? Because I think we could have
What,
done a better job.
what do you want to see?
So I would like to see the scenarios as they relate to salaries. You did a slide last year, you gave us option A, B, and C, and showed the economic impact to the overall budget. I would like to see raises not at 5%. To me, that's going backwards. And we made an incremental step last year, or for this current year, but it was a small step.
So maybe I don't understand.
I'd like to see something that shows raises that aren't below what we approved last year. And then with an increase that you would recommend to us for our consideration. For example, the department that got 6.25%, what does 7% look like?
Now, can I ask a question on that, just for clarification? Does that mean that the following year it's got to be 8, and the following year 9, and then
No.
10, and then 12?
No.
Or is there a point where after you get to a certain salary, like the other cities, they now can only give 1% because they've already priced themselves out of the market?
No, that isn't going to happen because we will have a salary survey so that we can be making a stronger data-driven discussion and decision going forward.
So if the salary survey comes back and shows us, let's say, just for sake, let's give 7%, and I'm not opposed to that at all. Let's say you give 7%. And then the salary survey comes up and we're now above average. Does that mean our mid-review comes in and we take 2% back?
No, because it
Well,
doesn't
if we give
mean,
5% and it comes back and it says, hey, we're just a little bit under, does that allow us to give 2% more?
it would. I
So
just would
swings
like
one
to
way, but
see
not both
the
ways.
scenarios.
All right. If you give too much, you have to be able to pull back. If you give too little, you can give up. So it should be,
And I'm not saying that we would give too much, I would just like to see more
Understood.
information.
Understood. What we'll do is we'll build a couple of scenarios with the cost of living,
with the salary adjustment.
You do 5%, but then also what will it look like if
I
we did
understand.
6.25?
I understand. I understand. Yes. So I will say that the more that number is, the more that the overall expenditure is, and if I'm running my scenarios off 28 cent, I don't know how that works.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't. And so let's be fair in adjustment. When I put this up there, this is not what I want necessarily. And also, let's be very clear. What I want doesn't matter. It's what do you want? And I remind us that our job here as elected officials, when we all swore to uphold the Constitution, we are elected officials of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we work for the citizens, period. Number one, end of story. So it is our job to get the best services at the lowest cost. We have a responsibility to our employees, but we don't work for them. We work for the people. We want everybody to like us, but we have to do the right thing whether they like us or not. With citizens, whatever. I think what we've done over the past 5 years has been, by any measure, astronomically good in relative to any period in the city of Helotes for our employees and for our citizens. And so that is just a snapshot. Looking back on the pattern, we have a history of a strategy that cuts taxes and gives raises and increases our savings. I believe that is a strategy that we can continue to do because, yes, we think, well, we gave 5% before, and so last year we gave 6%, so this year look at 7%. Well, you can't keep that exponential trend going because eventually everybody's making $1 million or $2 million or $10 million, and that just doesn't work. So it stops and reaches and then plateaus. And the question is, when you get to that point and you can only give people 1% or 0%, and they have cost of living going up and they've got a custom, these are your responsibilities to answer those questions. So we can certainly look at those things, but the question is, at least on the INS portion where it's required by law to reduce on that section, to not charge our citizens for what they're not paying for anymore, we don't have to do a 10%, not at all. We could do a 3% reduction, a small little reduction for the citizens, still be able to afford, but we would still be doing this out of savings. And the question is, to what degree are you comfortable spending out of savings so that we can soft land? Like Greg brought up, let's have a discussion where we eventually want to get. Let's not get there in 1 year because that could set a structural deficit that would be disruptive, but in a manner that long after I'm gone and you guys are here, you can soft land at a sustainable balance. And that's your future.
Okay, I have a question, and this is just gonna show my ignorance. I'm not really sure how this works. So let's say that, as Greg was mentioning, we decided to just have a 6-month reserve, or 6 to 8 month reserve. And we have all this extra. Can we transfer some of that to capital improvements? Because then we can cover the needs and not worry about, you know, that area. In other words, I know we shouldn't just, you know, interchange monies all the time. But if we decide a policy and we have that excess, could we move it? Or is that not allowed?
Absolutely allowable, and actually, that's actually a very, accounting-wise, a much simpler transaction. You don't have to worry about secondary or tertiary effects.
So shouldn't it be of importance that we now decide if we're gonna have a policy about how much is in reserves? Isn't that really the question? So that would affect everything we decide in a way. I mean,
absolutely.
so why are we sitting here having this excess and saying, well, you know, I don't know. I think that Greg's point, maybe that's where we should start in a way.
So deciding on policy would be a different agenda item type than I understand the value.
Than today's discussion.
Right,
Sure.
right. Yes, but I'm 2 thumbs up on that. Like, really, that helps in a lot of ways.
It would sure make
to
our
determine
job.
a real floor and even a false floor, right? It's when it really comes down to it. The question about transferring out of the unrestricted reserve funds into capital, almost every time that we do an addition to our capital plan to fund it, that's what we're doing. If it's
Okay,
not,
you do it
if it's
anyway.
beyond what our natural capital number supports. So we move over numbers. Let's say we're voting to increase the capital fund by $600,000 or $337,000 for apparatus for fire. Literally, we pull it from unrestricted over into capital. That's what we're
Okay.
doing.
Well, I got confused because I was saying, you were saying, well, we really got to make the hard decisions about the capital improvements. But if it's something we really felt we needed and we didn't have enough money in capital, we could take from another.
Hence the
Okay, I
hard
was
decision.
confused about what you were
Because the original thing is, why don't we do that? We can do that if you want to throw out all of your initial opening comments about the economy and your concerns. Because if you take all of our money, and half of our money, for example, roughly half our money, and scooch it over into capital and spend it on capital improvements, then you no longer have the base to be able to handle your initial concerns about the economy. Whereas if we spend a little bit in a structured and measured way, we end up at the same place, paying for capital expenditures, paying for raises, paying for reduced property taxes, and we end up at the goal. So we have the discussion and policy goal on where do we want to end up, and we put ourselves on a plan to arrive there over a course of a period of time. In the meantime, some of the capital expenditure requests aren't for this year. They're for 3 years from now. So as we do the calculus on that and measure it up, we move some over, and if you want to increase from $200,000 which what we've been doing every year is a pattern to, hey, let's put 400,000 a year over there to build up the capital improvement, absolutely, absolutely can do that.
So for the sake of guidance, directions, and our way forward. So I put this slide back up on purpose. Thank you, Selena, for that. The INS tax rate, that number is given to us every year based on our obligations. When we get what is flexible is our maintenance and operation tax rate. That's what you end up saying, here's what we want, which equates to the overall tax rate of whatever number of cents and pennies.
Got it.
So the 31 is what you impact as a city council mayor combination. You determine the M&O, which influences the tax rate overall. So the
So the INS may drop to 0.038625, very fractionally. And so what we have been doing for 4 years very successfully as an overall strategy is just let that end up being. And so we would end up with an actual tax rate of 0.30742 or whatever it might be. And it's just a nominal amount that comes off, but yet it's still a small decrease. What I had presented is the ability to be able to actually decrease M&O and INS by a grand total of as much as 3 cents. That is possible, as well as give tax rates, as well as take a look at some capital improvements. Now, do we need to do all that? Certainly no. Can we? We could, under the premise that we're going to structurally soft land at 8 or 9 months worth of savings over the next couple of years.
Right. So this is why I said earlier, your financial maturity that we think we're at, the economic stability that we, perceive are where we're going to level out as for the sake of what our revenues may be in the future or in the near future, as well as the distant future. Because if you are making decisions to infuse additional dollars, you should have an exit from being in a deficit. You should have. Otherwise, we're choosing to spend future dollars without having the funds, right? So
Right.
the reason why we have, parts of the reasons why we have so much money, I don't know if we've said a complete statement, but if I leave anything out, please help me. The reason why we have so much money is a few big combinations. We came out of 1 or 2 lawsuits in the 2020s, right? We came out of, we had a super windfall regarding sales tax in like 3 years in a row. One was like double of what we would even get if you just look at raw numbers. So do we perceive that we're going to continue to have that level of escalations? We've gone from, if I was to give just general numbers, let's just say that we had an 11 million year, we've had a 7 million year, and we had another 7 year. So those aren't real numbers. I'm just telling you for real. So let's just say that we had those as an escalation, but our real number was 4. We're going back to the plateau of, for real, where we're our steady state. We're not riding at $7 million. That's not where we're at. So we have to decide based on projections, based on anticipation on the sales tax side, based on what is available on the ad valorem side. You control ad valorem more than you can influence any other factor. Truth?
Correct.
Yeah. So where you determine we're going to be on this slide for 2026, that determines how much I have to operate on, period. Now, if we forecast a deficit, then that is something that we're going to have to deal with, and that's going to be a decision that you all make. I will execute on whatever that is, but you have to understand what you're doing when you make a deficit decision. So there are going to be some things that, if it's a deficit, that I will automatically start thinking about. but that has implications on other factors to include what our wages will be, what are the equipment that takes care of the grass, the roads, and all the other stuff. So however that plays, that's the decision that you all have to make. So I'll build whatever scenarios that you desire.
Well, this doesn't sound like the time to lower that to 10%. I mean, last year we talked about the external threat of our primary sales tax driver. We can only count on the businesses that we presently have and not, future developments to be driving financial decisions, especially related to businesses like, Bandera Ranch and the commercial development that will bring one day. We're one of the lowest taxing units in Bexar County as far as our ad valorem. And last year's council made the decision not to reduce it because the impact on the average resident was so minuscule. It was a few cents for the year. A 10% decrease would be a bit more, but if you have a property tax bill over, say, $9,500 on a $465,000 house, your property tax bill is still going to be over $9,000. Helotes collects 15% of what's on your property tax bill. The majority of it's going to the Northside ISD. And I think we still have too many unknowns, and we've talked about the volatility again, and I don't think this is the right time.
And Northside is looking at an increase. They're in the process of reviewing it, and looking at the sales tax month over month compared to last year. Every month is down, 3 months, double figures. We're down compared to last year, 7.83.
Well, absolutely. These are great points.
Those are,
No,
oh,
I apologize. I was trying to get eye contact with Daniel to see if he had any words that he could.
Well, I know we just got the July sales tax figure in about 2 or 3 days ago. We had seen that month over month up against last year. It looked, as you said, we had some deviation in excess of 10% for about 3 months there. That sales tax figure.
When you say deviation,
I'd say, so in any given month.
mean negative or positive?
Negative. It would be, so in other words, we were anywhere from 10 to 12% down in about 3 months, as y'all can see in what's presented. We had slowly been getting some of that back, where we were only down at around like 6%. And I think even last month we were below 2% off of last year's number. We did get this month's figure in, and this month's figure up against last month at the same time of the year. We were right under 12% down. So it did kind of, start being that
looking good and all of a sudden.
yeah, exactly. It was heading in our direction, and it kind of went the other way, which was slightly unanticipated, but it wasn't completely, given some trends we had seen earlier this year. To the discussion y'all are having, really, I'd say in any projection you're going to see that comes from us, the single biggest y'all as a council, the single biggest decision y'all make on our revenue stream tied to our two largest revenue streams, which is, ad valorem and sales tax, will be the decision that y'all make based on the tax rate. That is the one driver y'all have tied to y'all's revenue, that y'all decide the direction of that. The sales tax, we're really more kind of at the behest of the greater economy, and then also, where we are locally, and how all that kind of plays out. But at this time, as Henry said earlier, we have seen those valuations, and even what we anticipate getting next week, more than likely to be below what the valuation was last year on the ad valorem side. To what extent, I can't completely say. I think as a, just having been here for going on 3 years now, I think the trend here is that, yeah, we are, I think for about 5 or 6 years, there were many revenue backstops that allowed for us as a city to help, increase that fund balance. I think it was the sales tax tied to, when we were in the kind of pandemic situation where everyone's at home, everyone's shopping way more locally. I think the assessed valuations that were able to go up, given that everyone had the ability to kind of work from where they wanted to. So you saw a lot more mobility and you saw the housing market kind of boom. And then at the same time, we had around a $2.4 million backstop on top of those revenues we saw increasing tied to ARPA. So I think I've said this to some of y'all, I'll, continue to say it. I think the past 5 or 6 years, the city and the decisions we made put ourselves in a great spot to take advantage of situations that could help the city benefit itself, not only operating, but on financial security. But I do think, especially this year is kind of a data point, we're definitely reverting back more to what I'd consider our normal mean would be. In other words, that was a slight skew in a curve that we may not see again, and because of that, the decisions y'all make tied to, especially, the ad valorem and y'all's comfort level tied to wherever we head on our estimations on the sales tax side will largely play into not only this year's budget, but to Henry's point, anything we instill into this budget could lead to decisions, 12 months down the line when we're kind of in the same spot, making decisions on next year's budget and such. So I think, as a council, as a city, we're in a very healthy financial position. It's just kind of on y'all to decide what direction y'all'd like to take and where your comfort level lies, Councilwoman, to your point, in regards to what level of that fund balance do you all feel comfortable with, and how quickly or slowly do y'all want to expend that fund balance as y'all get closer to whatever that number you decide is the comfort amount that y'all want to hold on to. Because yeah, I think, there's always going to be the capital request that we will always be there on our side. It's just for y'all to prioritize.
Thank you, Daniel, and I really appreciate your comments and your comments, because this goes to exactly what I was saying last year. Be aware, even though our sales tax has been like this, beware. And what we're seeing play out this last year is, well, oh my goodness, we had some decrease. Now it's even causing everybody now to say, whoa, I'm not sure we want to spend. Remember that, yes, property tax reduction is an expense to us because it's a reduction in revenue. Raises are the same thing. So the raises that we're looking at are equivalent to a 10% cut in property taxes. So when you take a look at that and you say, hey, let's just give even more raises, you are actually contradicting exactly what you're saying about, hey, let's not cut property taxes because we don't want to be out of money. So those two things are the exact same thing. So if you're concerned about reducing property taxes, you also need to be concerned about the degree of money you spend on raises, because both of those are what we'd call forever money and compounding, right? So I'm not saying we shouldn't give raises. I'm not saying we shouldn't cut taxes. I'm not saying we should. I'm just putting out there, here's where a scenario that would get us spending money down. But some of the comments, and I really appreciate them because they are actually confirming pretty much everything we were saying last year, that we have to also be cognizant of potential swings, but overall take a look at what is facing, what we're facing as an economy and overall prospects. Just because you have 1 month or 1 quarter down, that doesn't mean forever that's going that way. Just because we had a year or two that's going up, that doesn't mean forever it's going that way. And our large sales tax provider is a great example of that to the extreme. Massive increase, massive decrease, and it whipshaws us around.
Yeah, I like what you said, Daniel, about what do we have control over? We do not have control over sales tax, really, but we do over ad valorem, so that's a good thing to keep in mind.
All right. And last round. No, Mr. Bush? Okay. Dave? Any other thoughts, Daniel, staff? Greg, any final comments or?
Well, yes, I wanted to follow up on what the city administrator was saying or asking about. And we're talking about modeling here, right? Building out a couple scenarios. So I think this earlier, I believe it was Councilmember Caraway mentioned about asking departments to prioritize their capital projects. So I think we ought to see that. I think it'd be useful to model as well larger transfers out to larger capital transfers to see what that looks like budget-wise. I think right now it's 200 is showing, so model out. I mean, I pick your numbers. I mean, you could pick out everything, fully funding the capital projects or 400. It doesn't really matter to me, but to seeing something, other scenarios, I think would be useful. And then I don't know how to build this out or if it's the right approach, but we have these personnel requests. What does that look like going forward if that's built into budgeting?
Yes, sir. Message received. I will say, just regarding the personnel request, uh, when it comes to personnel requests, it absolutely is a decision point on where you're going to spend your personnel cost. And I'll just stop there.
To clarify, if you spend what you have a certain amount to spend on raises and new personnel, personnel eats away at budget available for raises, in general. Same thing with any expenditure, if you will. So may I make a suggestion, Henry, and to council, if I'm amenable? We have time to stick on the agenda for the 23rd, which should be a discussion. And to the extent we need probably not to bring up, but maybe 2 or 3 of these slides, one being an overall net effect on bottom line of this percent raise, this percent raise, of adding personnel, and which is almost the cost of most all the raises, and the minor effect of the anticipated INS, which actually would be negligible because that portion goes straight to INS, so it's really kind of a wash. That's not lost. Reducing the overall property tax by the INS is a net zero gain for our operational. And so we'll bring up a couple of presentations on that, and then hopefully we can have a departmental prioritization of capital expenditures that are slated for this, let's say over the next 3 years, right, to take a look at.
That's actually in your packet.
Correct.
That we move things to the right. We have things, again, the FY '27 is marked at 1.5 something million dollars as opposed to the original $12 million. We have the police 1, 2, or 1A, so on and so forth. Is the question to do something different than that regarding capital?
Well, I think by pulling those slides out, along with
their greatly reduced.
Yeah, and so there you have, here's our capital looking, and here's where our capital budget is, and here's where we're funding our annual funding for, and this is what our bottom line looks under these raise scenarios, and what do we want to do above that? Do we want to take a look at remembering our citizens in that aspect, particularly if property tax goes up? I mean, we had a council person last year that said no to property tax decreases, but also declared them, couldn't even afford here if we had to pay the property tax. They don't even pay property taxes, and so we have to be aware that our citizens are under.
Okay, that's all right.
It was a contradicting
Okay, you don't
statement.
have to, I just didn't understand.
So the question is that, at some point we have to take a look at the entirety of the picture, and I'm glad you guys are seeing both sides and have been discussing both sides and concerns of that, concerns of spending, the concerns of saving, and now it's firmly in your all's hands, and we'll have that agenda. I think that's the direction. Highlight the capital expenditure for specific item discussion and prioritization, and some scenarios on expenditures for raises.
Raises and personnel.
And start with only an assumption on the required INS reduction, which is a net zero for us, and then you can make decisions going from there.
I got it. I understand. If I'm wrong, then we'll figure it out. But as far as the slide deck, I will say that it will, for real, be greatly reduced. I am not hearing operational concerns currently, okay? I get it that if we get to a point where we say, infuse more dollars or overexpend or have a deficit of some sort versus a truly balanced, I will look at what that could look like also. We'll run some scenarios and we'll present you that. I'll stop.
And can I just real quick, so to be clear, if the proposed amount from last year's budget wasn't all spent this year, you know, in that department or whatever, it stays in the general fund, right?
It turns into unreserved.
Funds, okay.
Unrestricted reserved funds,
So that's in there, okay.
correct,
Okay, just want to make sure.
yes. Retained earnings is what it is. Doesn't just stay in their budget as a carry-through.
Right.
The old assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity.
Rollover minutes, is that what we used to call it?
Yes.
Like leave, vacation.
Exactly right.
It's over.
Okay, so accumulated PTO.
Yes, sir. So I understand the assignment, so
I believe that brings us to the end of discussion of items 3, 4, 5.
so I think we have,
Okay.
yes.
Have one. All right, at this time, we'll go into citizens be heard. Each person has signed up and state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to share your thoughts. We have Patrick McGowan.
Wow, an interesting meeting. Okay, I'm Patrick McGowan. I live at 10902 Bar X Trail. And I agree with the mayor that you do have an excess amount of surplus cash. And I do agree in having a strong reserve, and your reserve policy is 3 months, which is $3 million, and a budget of $10 to $12 million seems reasonable. But I think people would really be surprised to find out that there's an additional $10 to $12 million of surplus on top of that reserve. And that has been accumulated over the last 6 years, which I think has been discussed today. And unfortunately, that $10 to $12 million of reserve was never invested into the city in solving many of the challenges that we see today in parking, safety, flooding, new infrastructure, and maintenance. And I think people would really be surprised to find out that the surplus was a result of the lack of the city's comprehensive plan over the last 6 years. Today, there's no plan. There's no plan to guide the city, and there's nothing to say what's going to happen in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, which is pretty obvious in some of the discussions that we've been listening to today. And everybody knows if you don't have a plan, then you're accomplishing very little. And I think that if you are not investing in the infrastructure, all you're doing is accumulating cash. So I am very excited to see that there's a budget item for a comprehensive strategic development plan or strategic plan. And I'm confident in the vision that you will come up with and something that we'll really be proud of. I'm also confident that the strategic plan needs to result in a program plan, a list of projects of things that you want to fund over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Also a cost estimate, a schedule, and finally a funding plan. And the funding plan is so critical. That funding plan tells you what you're going to do with this $10 to $12 million in cash that you have sitting there now, but also how do you fund all these different programs that will be a result of your strategic plan. Which kind of brings me to the next point, which is this whole idea of this 10% reduction in property taxes. It would be completely irresponsible to lower your revenue before you even start your strategic plan. That makes no sense, and no one would ever do something like that or even consider. And it's wrong on every single account, and it's just not responsible management. You don't lower your revenue before you come up with your plan. And so I think that right now you have no idea what's going to result of the strategic plan. You don't know the projects, you don't know the investments that you're going to need to make, you don't know the list of projects, costs, timings. And you know, this is the time that you have no idea on the amount of funding that you're going to need. And so to make adjustments now is just wrong. So I'm asking you, when you go through and develop your strategic plan, develop your finance plan, and at that point, if you feel you need to lower your property taxes, then do that. But at least it's based on logic and not just some gut feel. And so I know that right now you're at a point where you're going through the budget, you got a lot of good ideas and bad ideas. You need to, all right. Anyway, thank you so much, but bottom line, I don't support lowering your revenue before you even develop your plan. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, well, at this time, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting prior to our 4 o'clock hopeful deadline at 3:59 PM. We are adjourned.
Hi, Greg. Good morning or good night.
I just got the.
Poor Craig.
Or good night, wherever it might be.
Bye, y'all.